excerpts from Act 1 and Act 2 today.
Okay.
And really going to try to trace Nora's story arc, her choices, her relationships, and all culminating in that dramatic ending,
Right.
which had people talking for decades.
Yeah.
Are you ready to kind of unpack this a little?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a story that's got secrets and lies and a lot of social commentary that still feels really relevant today.
I know, it's amazing how it stood the test of time.
Yeah.
So Act I opens with this kind of light and playful energy, and we meet Nora, and she comes across as almost childlike, would you say?
Yeah, you see her at first kind of flitting around. She's excited about Christmas shopping. She's indulging in macaroons, even though her husband Torvald has forbidden them.
With macaroons.
I know, right?
It's like a tiny act of rebellion.
Yeah.
And then we learn about the secret loan that she took out to save Torvald's life.
Right.
And she even forged her father's signature.
Yeah, and that's where the tension really starts to build because we see this hidden strength in Nora. Like, she's willing to kind of defy social norms for her husband and his well-being, but it also puts her in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah, because that secret loan is hanging over her head.
Right.
And then enter Nils Krogstad, the antagonist.
Yes.
He's the one who gave Nora the loan.
Right.
And he's not afraid to use that to his advantage.
Well, he's desperate, isn't he? He's got to keep his job at the bank, which, as fate would have it, is now being managed by Torvald.
Oh, right.
So he threatens to expose Nora's secret if he's fired, and that's when things get really serious.
You can just feel Nora's anxiety mounting
Yeah.
as the situation kind of spirals.
Yeah.
She's caught between this charming facade that she's built and the very real consequences of her actions.
It's interesting, too, because Krog said even though he's kind of set up as the antagonist, he's not completely unsympathetic.
Yeah.
He's made some bad choices, but he's also a product of his circumstances.
Right.
He's just trying to provide for his family.
So it makes you think about how Ibsen is blurring the lines between good and evil.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect, and everybody's got secrets.
Right.
And sometimes even desperate actions are driven by this kind of morality.
Yes.
So amidst all this drama, we also meet Christine Lind, Nora's old friend, who arrives seeking work and becomes her confidant.
Yeah, Christine's had a totally different life.
Right.
She's had to be independent and resourceful, and she's kind of a foil to Nora's sheltered existence.
And their conversations are so revealing. You
Yeah.
can sense Nora questioning her own choices as she hears about Christine's experiences and the sacrifices that Christine has made.
Yeah, it's like she's starting to see the bars of her own gilded cage.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, you've got Dr. Rank, this family friend who adds a whole other layer.
I know.
He's terminally ill and has this melancholy, but he's also deeply in love with Nora.
His presence is so fascinating.
Yeah.
He's got this dark humor, this awareness of life's fragility.
Right.
And his unrequited feelings for Nora add this undercurrent of romantic tension and foreshadowing.
And his confession to her is very poignant.
Yeah.
It shows that she's attractive, but also how she's not able to really connect with anyone because of the persona that she's built for herself.
Yeah.
So by the end of Act, we have this web of all these relationships, and everyone's got their secrets, and they're all facing these dilemmas.
And the tension is palpable.
Yeah. You just know that things are going to come to a head.
You know it's coming.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Right.
So on to Act 2.
Okay. Act 2 opens with this fancy dress ball
Okay.
at the Stenborg's house.
Yeah.
And on the surface, everything's festive and lively.
Right.
But underneath, you can really feel Nora's anxiety just bubbling.
It's almost like the gaiety around her is amplifying her inner turmoil. You know,
Yeah.
she's dancing, she's socializing, but her mind is obviously somewhere else.
Well, she's thinking about Krogstad
Right.
and what's going to happen to her family.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how Ibsen uses the setting, the ball, to really kind of bring out this feeling of impending doom.
Oh, yeah.
You've got all these masked figures and these hidden identities and these forced smiles. It's
Right.
like he's showing us how fake and deceptive Nora's world really is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where we really see her desperation come out.
Yeah,
She tries to plead with Torvald to keep Krogstad at the bank,
right.
but he's just cold.
Yeah, his true colors really come out in this act.
They do.
He's obsessed with looking good, you know, keeping up appearances.
Right.
The idea that Krogstad could ruin his reputation is just unbearable to him.
And he doesn't have any empathy, does he?
No, not at all.
Like, he won't even think about what's going to happen to Krogstad's family
Right.
if he gets fired.
No, he even blames his bad morals on his mother. Like,
Okay.
it's something you inherit.
It's crazy.
It really shows you the prejudices back then, you know?
Yeah.
Like, people actually believed your morality came from your family.
And this is something that Nora will actually push back on later in the play.
Ex-
So while Torvald is being stubborn,
Yeah.
Christine is actually trying to find a solution.
Well, she's got that history with Krogstad,
Right.
and she reaches out to him,
Yeah.
hoping to maybe reason with him,
Right.
maybe even rekindle things.
It's a risky move,
Oh, yeah, totally.
but she wants to help
She does.
both Nora and Krogstad.
Right.
She sees the good in him,
Yeah.
that he could change,
Yeah.
even though everyone else has written him off.
And meanwhile, Nora is desperately trying to stall for time.
Right.
She knows that once Torvald reads that letter
Uh-huh.
Krogstad sent him,
Yeah.
everything's gonna come out.
It's all over.
Yeah, she even tries to distract him with that crazy Tarantella dance.
It's heartbreaking watching her struggle,
I know.
knowing it's all about to fall apart.
And of course it happens.
Yeah.
Torvald finds the letter,
Yeah.
and he just loses it.
Uh-huh.
He's so angry.
Yeah.
It really shows you how shallow their relationship is, you know?
Right.
Nora's been playing this role. The perfect wife, the little doll.
Right.
And Torvald's been fine with that. But as
Yeah.
soon as that image is threatened,
Yeah.
his love is gone.
It's brutal.
Yeah,
It's like a wake-up call for Nora.
it is.
It forces her to face reality.
And she spends the whole night thinking about everything that happened. And in the morning, she's completely changed.
Really?
Yeah, this is the turning point in the play.
Yeah.
She realizes her whole life has been a performance,
Yeah.
a show for everyone else.
Like she's been living in a doll's house.
Exactly.
Oh.
Controlled by the men in her life.
So she decides she can't live like that anymore.
Nope.
She needs to figure out who she is,
Yeah.
what she believes in on her own.
And so she has this incredible confrontation with Torvald.
Yeah.
And she tells him, I believe that before all else, I am a reasonable human being just as you are.
Wow.
It's like a bomb went off in their marriage.
And in society as a whole,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's just such a powerful moment.
Yeah,
She's rejecting everything she's ever known.
right. Her husband, her kids, her comfortable life.
All for self-discovery.
Yeah, and you can only imagine what people thought back then.
Oh, I know.
For a woman to do that, especially a wife, a mother,
Unheard of.
totally unheard of.
And it challenged all the expectations
Oh, absolutely.
about a woman's role.
Yeah,
It's that door slam heard around the world.
it is.
It's just this symbol of rebellion.
Right.
You know, her saying, I'm not going to be confined anymore.
It makes you think, though, what happens to her.
I know.
Does she actually find that freedom?
Did she find what she's looking for?
Yeah, Ibsen doesn't really tell us.
Right.
It's up to us to imagine.
Yeah, but her choice obviously changed everything.
Oh, yeah, both for her and Torvald.
He's just left there.
Yeah.
Law.
Totally bewildered.
And for the audience, it's like this call to action,
Totally.
to examine your own life.
Are you making the right choices?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What compromises are you making?
It really makes you think, what would happen if Honora did this today?
Yeah.
Would she get the support she needs?
It's a really interesting thought.
I think so.
I mean, some things have changed for women,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
but those social pressures are still there.
Oh, for sure.
Women are still judged.
Yeah, for their careers, their relationships, how they raise their kids.
And so many women still struggle financially.
Yeah, it makes it hard to leave a bad situation.
So even though a modern Nora might have more help,
Right,
it would still be a huge challenge.
absolutely.
But just like Nora back then,
Yeah,
it comes down to a choice.
it does.
Stay or go.
Right. Stay in a situation that isn't working or take a leap of faith
Even if it means facing uncertainty.
and judgment.
And this is something that resonates with everyone,
I think so.
not just women.
It's about being true to yourself.
Exactly.
We all have these doll's houses, you know?
Yeah.
These expectations we have to live up to.
And Ibsen is reminding us we can break free. It's about having the courage to challenge things,
And to live authentically.
even if it means going against what everyone expects.
Right.
So we'll leave you with this. What are your doll's houses?
Yeah.
What compromises are you making?
And what would it take for you to walk away?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep questioning
Keep exploring.
and keep diving deep. All right, get ready to tumble down the rabbit hole with us
Head
today
down the rabbit hole.
as we take a deep dive into Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Yes.
We've got the complete text from Project Gutenberg.
Great resource.
Oh, it's fantastic. And,
Yeah.
well, as you know, things are going to get curiouser and curiouser, so buckle up.
Alice's Adventures is fascinating because it works on multiple levels, you know? It's a children's story, but it's also a really complex exploration of language and logic
Absolutely.
and the nature of reality.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
So the story begins with Alice, and she's sitting by the riverbank with her sister, feeling incredibly bored. I mean, haven't we all been there? Just,
Well,
that yearning for something.
Absolutely. It's crucial, that boredom, because it makes her receptive to the impossible.
Yeah.
When the white rabbit rushes by, pocket watch in hand, she's immediately intrigued.
She doesn't even hesitate to follow him, even though he's clearly not your average rabbit.
No. Right. Her curiosity overrides any sense of caution.
Yeah.
It's like she's been waiting for an adventure, and this is her chance to seize it.
And what an adventure it is. I mean, the fall down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
is so sudden, so disorienting.
It is.
One minute she's on solid ground, and the next she's,
Yeah.
plummeting into the unknown.
The description of that fall is so vivid, you know. Carol has her passing cupboards and bookshelves and maps as she's falling.
Yeah.
It's like a whirlwind tour of the world that she's leaving behind.
What do you think is going through her mind as she's falling?
Well, I think there's a sense of wonder, but also apprehension, right? I mean, she's entering a world where the ordinary rules no longer apply.
For sure. And that becomes very clear
Yeah.
very quickly as she starts shrinking and growing.
Right.
And first, we've got the drink me potion.
Yeah, even though she's curious,
Yes.
she's also cautious.
Yes.
She checks for a poison label first,
Uh-huh.
which shows a level-headedness, I think,
Yep.
that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a child.
She's already thinking things through.
Yeah, it's an early indication that Alice, despite her youth, isn't going to blindly accept everything she encounters in Wonderland.
Right.
She's going to question, she's going to analyze,
Yeah.
and she's going to try to make sense of it all.
But making sense of Wonderland is, well, it's a challenge. Her
Yeah.
size is changing so unpredictably,
Yeah,
and it's so physically uncomfortable.
right.
I mean, can you imagine growing so tall that you hit your head on the ceiling and you have to stick your arms out the windows?
Carol's use of physical comedy here is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, he grounds the fantastical in the relatable, you know. We may not have experienced sudden growth spurts,
Right.
but we've all felt awkward and
Yeah.
out of place at times.
And then there's the pool of tears.
Oh, yeah,
Literally, she cries a river, creates a sea of her own tears.
exactly.
It's such a powerful image of, I think.
It's as if Carol is saying that our feelings, especially as children, can have a profound impact on how we experience the world.
Yeah. And swimming through this sea of tears, she encounters all these strange creatures.
Yeah.
The dodo, the lorry, the mouse.
Yeah.
Like a bizarre parade of personalities,
It is.
each one more peculiar than the last.
It's here that we really start to see Carol's love of wordplay and
Yeah.
nonsensical humor.
Yeah.
Like when the mouse tries to tell a dry history lesson, that ends up being completely unrelated to the situation.
And poor Alice, she's trying so hard to follow the conversation,
Yeah.
to be polite.
But she ends up offending the mouse.
Yeah, it's so relatable.
It is.
It's like trying to navigate a social situation
Yeah.
where the rules have vanished.
Miscommunication is a recurring theme in Alice's adventures.
Yeah.
It highlights those challenges of understanding and being understood,
Yeah.
especially in a world where language itself seems to be playing tricks on you.
And just when you think it can't get any stranger, Alice encounters the white rabbit again.
Yeah.
This time, he mistakes her for his housemaid,
Marianne.
Marianne.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just a funny reminder that appearances can be deceiving,
Especially in Wonderland.
especially in Wonderland.
The mix-up also highlights this theme of identity.
Yeah.
You know, Alice is
Yeah.
constantly being mistaken for someone else, and it makes her question who she is
Yeah.
and where she belongs in this topsy-turvy world.
Right. She's still trying to figure that out
Yeah.
as she enters the white rabbit's house.
Goes into the house.
Uh-huh. And of course,
More size-changing chaos.
of course, first she's too big.
Right.
Then she has to shrink herself down to get through the door.
It's a metaphor
Yeah.
for her journey through Wonderland itself.
Right.
She's constantly being forced to adapt and
Mhm.
adjust to new and unexpected situations.
We also start to get glimpses of her life back home,
Yeah.
through her thoughts about her cat, Dinah,
Mm.
who seems to be quite the skilled huntress.
Yeah, it adds a slightly darker undertone to the story, don't you think?
It does, yeah.
It's a subtle reminder that even in this world of fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
there are elements of danger
Yeah.
and unpredictability.
Even back home.
Right. Dinah represents that world outside of Wonderland where things aren't always so whimsical.
It makes you wonder if this whole journey is partly an escape from
Yeah,
the more mundane,
absolutely.
maybe even harsher realities of our everyday life.
It could be.
Yeah,
It could be.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Let's keep going. Oh, and then there's the Cheshire Cat.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most enigmatic characters, really.
I mean, who doesn't love a grinning cat that can just disappear into thin air?
Right. But it's his words, you know?
His,
Yeah, really stick with you.
oh, for sure.
Like when he tells Alice, we're all mad here. What does that even mean?
It makes you wonder what sanity even is
Exactly.
in a world as topsy-turvy as Wonderland.
Right. He challenges our assumptions about,
Yeah.
logic and reason.
Totally.
And then there's that line that's almost become a motto for life.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter which way you go.
Yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, on the surface, it sounds like nihilism, but I think there's a deeper meaning there.
Okay.
Maybe it's about embracing the unknown
Mm-hmm.
and accepting that there's no one right path in life.
Sometimes the journey is more important
Yeah,
than the destination.
absolutely.
Speaking of journeys, Alice's next stop is the Mad Tea Party.
Oh, yes.
This is where things get really interesting.
The Mad Tea Party, one of the most iconic scenes in literature.
It's brilliant.
It really is.
It's this perfect blend of humor and absurdity and social commentary all in one.
It's like Carol just took all the rules of polite conversation, right?
Yeah.
Threw them out the window,
Next 'em.
and then invited us to this tea party where time stands still.
Uh-huh.
Whittles make no sense.
Yeah.
A dormouse is used as a cushion.
I mean, come on. What is going on?
The scene is just full of wordplay and double meanings.
Yeah.
You know, the Hatter and the March Hare constantly interrupting each other,
Right?
asking nonsensical riddles,
Yeah.
shifting places at the table.
It's madness.
It's a satire of social conventions
Okay.
and these meaningless rituals that we often find ourselves trapped in.
And poor Alice.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of it all.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle
Yeah.
with missing pieces.
Exactly. And I think that's something we can all relate to, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We've all been in those conversations
Yeah.
where it's like the rules of communication have vanished.
Where words lose their meaning
Yeah.
and logic takes a backseat to absurdity.
Makes you want to scream.
It really does.
Or maybe that's just me.
Maybe.
So speaking of madness,
Oh, yeah.
Alice's next encounter
Here we go.
is with the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah. The Queen of Hearts.
Not exactly known for her,
Patience, forgiving nature.
off with their heads.
Her favorite phrase.
It's a little terrifying.
It is, even though the Griffin later suggests that she never actually carries out those threats.
Right.
But still, that constant threat of execution
Yeah.
creates this atmosphere of fear and obedience.
And nowhere is that more apparent than in the Queen's croquet game.
Oh, the croquet game.
Peacogs for balls, flamingos for mallets.
It's hilarious.
It's kind of unsettling, though.
It is. It highlights the absurdity of trying to impose order
Mhm.
on a world that's inherently chaotic.
It makes you wonder about rules,
Yeah.
and who gets to make them.
Yeah.
It's enough to make anyone want to escape,
Yeah.
which is exactly what Alice tries to do.
She tries to get away.
She does, but then she runs into the Mock Turtle and the Griffin.
Oh, these two.
What do you make of them?
They're fascinating,
Mhm.
They exist in this world of perpetual sorrow,
Yeah.
and their tales of woe are both funny and heartbreaking at the same time.
It's that
Melancholy.
melancholy, yeah.
But also, like you said, funny.
The Mock Turtle story about his education.
Oh, yeah.
Lessons in uglification and mystery. Come on.
It's like Carol is poking fun at the traditional education system.
I think so.
The way it prioritizes rote learning
Yeah.
over true understanding.
I'd see that.
And he's also highlighting the way that language can be used to obfuscate
Yep.
rather than illuminate.
It's true.
And then there's the lobster quadrille,
Oh, my goodness.
a dance so strange and nonsensical.
What is that?
It could only exist in Wonderland.
I mean, really, what was Carol thinking?
It's a perfect example of his linguistic playfulness.
Okay.
The lyrics are just full of puns and double meanings.
It's bizarre.
It's bizarre, but it's delightful.
Like a fever dream.
a fever dream.
But all dreams must come to an end.
That's true.
Alice's journey is nearing its conclusion.
It is.
She finds herself at the trial of the Knave of Hearts.
The trial.
Brings together all the themes of the story.
Yeah, it's a complete mockery of justice, isn't it?
It is. The evidence is nonsensical. The witnesses are unreliable.
The judge is biased.
It's a satire of the legal system. The
Yeah.
way that truth and fairness can be manipulated
By those in power.
by those in power, exactly.
And it's during the trial that Alice finally finds her voice.
She does. She stands up to the queen.
She challenges the absurd proceedings.
She refuses to be silenced.
It's a pivotal moment
Yeah.
in her journey.
She's not that passive little girl anymore.
Right.
She's learned.
She's learned.
And she's ready to assert herself.
Yeah,
But defiance has consequences.
it does.
The queen orders her execution,
Oh, no.
and Alice is surrounded by a pack of cards. And
And she wakes up
she wakes up.
back on the riverbank with her sister.
Was it all a dream?
That's the question, isn't it?
The question that lingers.
That lingers.
So was it all just a dream?
It's the question that lingers, right?
Yeah. Was it all in her head? Was this just,
A figment of her imagination.
a product of her boredom?
It's the beauty of the story, I think.
Okay.
It makes us question those boundaries between reality and imagination.
I mean, was there something more profound happening?
Well, it captures the vividness and the strangeness of childhood imagination, right?
Right.
The way that everyday things
Yeah.
can become fantastical adventures.
Yeah, like she's playing croquet with a flamingo.
Exactly.
And she's having tea with,
Mad Hatter, March Hare.
yeah.
It's wild.
But I feel like there's more to it than that, right?
Well, yeah, beyond the whimsical, there are those deeper themes
Yeah.
of identity, of logic, of language,
Right.
the challenges of growing up
In a world that doesn't make sense,
in a world that doesn't make sense.
which is kind of like our world.
Yeah, I mean, Carol is inviting us to see the world through the eyes of a child,
Okay.
question our assumptions,
And
embrace the absurd.
I like that.
And even in the midst of all the chaos and confusion,
Yeah.
Alice never loses her sense of curiosity. She's always eager to explore and to learn and to make sense of things.
And she discovers a strength
Yeah.
and a resilience that she didn't know she had.
She learns to adapt,
Yeah.
to stand up for herself,
Yeah.
to find her voice.
In a world that tries to silence her.
Exactly.
That's a powerful message, I think.
It is a powerful message.
So what do you think? What stood out to you the most in Alice's journey? Was it her courage?
Yeah, her curiosity.
Her ability to find beauty and meaning in the most unexpected places?
I mean, maybe you connected with her struggles, to navigate a world that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or maybe you were inspired by her determination to find her own way.
I hope this deep dive into Wonderland has sparked your imagination.
Left you with a renewed sense of wonder.
And remember, just like Alice, we all have the power to create our own adventures, explore the unknown,
Discover the extraordinary.
and maybe, just maybe,
You'll find yourself tumbling down a rabbit hole.
your own rabbit hole.
Of your own someday.
That's it for this deep dive into Alice's adventures in Wonderland.
Until next time.
We'll see you. All right. So are you ready to take a deep dive with me? All right. Get ready to All right. Get ready to dive into Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina with me. We're in for a whirlwind of love, betrayal, and social drama, all set in 19th century Russia.
What's really fascinating about this book is how Tolstoy weaves these characters' lives together. You see how even tiny choices can snowball and totally change their destinies.
So true. And the story kicks off with a pretty scandalous situation, doesn't it? Stepan Arkadyevich Oblonsky, and his brother, is a guy who loves to enjoy life. But he's also kind of trapped in a web of his own making. Debts, a marriage that isn't exactly happy, and a bit of a weakness for affairs.
And this is where Tolstoy is just brilliant. Stepan's liberalism, it's not really a core belief, more like a handy excuse for the way he acts. There's that part where he's reading these newspaper articles that bash the government.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's savoring them, like a nice cigar after dinner.
It's amazing satire. Tolstoy is subtly showing how some people use political ideas just to cover up their own selfish desires.
Right.
But here's the thing. Stepan, for all his flaws, is super successful in his job. He's charming, quick-witted, and can handle tricky situations like a pro.
Makes you think about what success really means, right? In a world where looking good matters more than being good.
Exactly. Stepan's charm might let him get away with things for a while,
Oh, yeah.
but eventually those consequences are going to catch up.
They always do.
Okay, so we've got Stepan with his charm and his flaws setting the stage. And then comes Konstantin Levin. Talk about a contrast. Levin's a landowner, totally connected to the land, but he's also an intellectual, always wrestling with big life questions.
He's such a fascinating character, so awkward, so sincere, especially when it comes to love. He falls head over heels for Kitty Cherbatsky, but totally fumbles when he tries to tell her. It makes him seem even more out of place in those fancy social circles.
But then there's that scene, remember, when they're ice skating?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Levin finds this confidence, even though he's so shy. And Kitty tells him, "With you, I should soon learn. I somehow feel confidence in you."
It's like this glimpse into this deep connection they have. It
Yeah.
goes beyond all that social awkwardness. But it doesn't last, sadly. Kitty's drawn to the flashy Count Vronsky, and she ends up choosing him, which breaks Levin's heart and makes him question his own worth.
Poor Levin. He goes back to the countryside, feeling like he doesn't belong, wondering if he'll ever find real love and happiness.
He calls himself a nobody, lost in a world that doesn't seem to have a place for him.
It's so sad. His journey, running alongside this dramatic love affair with Anna and Vronsky, becomes this deep exploration of love, societal pressure, and searching for meaning in a world that's always changing.
Exactly.
And speaking of Anna, her entrance is so dramatic. It's like she arrives at the train station and sets off this chain reaction. Everything shifts.
Tolstoy doesn't pick the train station by chance. The train is like the symbol of progress, but it also disrupts everything. It brings excitement, but it also brings upheaval.
Totally. So Levin's at the station to meet Stepan, and he notices something different about Stepan, like a restrained radiance and a joyous smile. It's obviously because of Anna.
And then Levin sees Vronsky too, right? He's struck by how happy and self-assured Vronsky is, things Levin wants so badly. This first meeting really sets up these contrasts that Tolstoy keeps weaving through the whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the restaurant later, Vronsky just charms everyone. He even gets that French woman behind the counter laughing. But Levin is completely put off by her. It shows how different they are.
Right. Dronsky's got this carefree confidence, and Levin is struggling with self-doubt. He feels so alienated from everyone else.
It's in those little details that Tolstoy reveals so much about them.
So the air is thick with this unspoken attraction between Anna and Vronsky. And Levin's there watching it all, feeling even worse about himself.
And then there's Kitty, caught right in the middle. She's drawn to Vronsky's charm and his status, but picking him over Levin comes with a price.
She's torn between what she wants and what society expects. And even after she chooses Vronsky, she can't shake this image of Levin's kind eyes looking out in dark dejection.
Such a powerful image. It shows the pressure of society and how complicated love is, huge themes for Tolstoy.
So Katie's choice sets everyone off in a new direction. Levin, heartbroken, retreats even deeper into the countryside,
Yeah.
finding comfort in nature and work.
Meanwhile, Anna and Vronsky's connection explodes into this passionate, forbidden affair.
They can't resist each other, but Anna is so conflicted. She's a wife, a mother, bound by what society says and her own beliefs. Adultery is a sin.
Tolstoy is amazing at capturing that inner struggle. You know, that scene where she's reading a book, picturing a happy life with Vronsky, but then suddenly feels ashamed.
It's like she's being pulled in two opposite directions, passion and freedom on one side and expectations and fear of judgment on the other.
Exactly, and it just gets stronger as the affair goes on. There's that scene at the train station. Anna's completely overwhelmed by her feelings for Vronsky, and it's like she's going crazy.
She talks about seeing things distorted, hearing weird sounds, and even questions who she is. It's as if her emotions are physically taking over.
It shows how consuming passion can be. It makes you question everything you thought you knew.
And then, to complicate things even more, her husband, Alexei Alexandrovich, is right there at the station too.
Oh man, that scene is so tense. Alexei Alexandrovich sees Vronsky, but just gives him this cold, formal nod. Anna's trying to act normal, but Vronsky catches a flash of something in her eyes, and he knows she feels it too.
They can't hide their true feelings. The connection is too strong, and the distance between Anna and her husband keeps growing. They're both trapped.
And that's just the beginning. As the story goes on, this web of relationships gets even more tangled.
It's going to be messy.
Oh yeah, it leads to some pretty devastating consequences for everyone involved.
Okay, so we've set the stage for this epic story. Stepan, the charming rogue. Levin, the brooding intellectual. Anna, torn between passion and duty. And Vronsky, the dashing count who lights this whole firestorm. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Buckle up. We're just getting started. Welcome back to our deep dive into Anna Karenina. When we left off, Anna and Vronsky's affair was heating up, and Levin was off in the countryside trying to mend his broken heart.
Yeah, it felt like their secret was going to explode any minute.
Exactly, and then boom. Anna drops a bombshell on Vronsky. She's pregnant.
Wow, that definitely changes things. Now they have to face the consequences.
Anna thinks this is going to bring them closer, that maybe they can finally be together openly.
She sees it as a symbol of their love.
But Tolstoy hints that Vronsky might not feel the same. Remember that weird loathing Vronsky feels sometimes?
Uh-huh.
It pops up again when Anna tells him. So there's this shadow hanging over their happiness. It makes you wonder if he's really ready to be a father, especially with all the scandal.
Totally. And things get even harder when society starts to pressure them. Vronsky's mother, at first she didn't mind the affair, but then she realizes how serious it is.
Right, she's all about appearances and her son's future. She sees Anna as a threat.
And it's not just his mother. Even Yashvin, Vronsky's friend, remember him, kind of a cynic.
Oh, yeah.
Well, even he's worried. He warns Vronsky about the consequences.
Yashvin gets it. He knows the rules of their world, and breaking them can ruin you, even if you're rich and powerful, like Vronsky.
So while Vronsky's dealing with all that, Levin's trying to find a different kind of happiness out in the country. He throws himself into managing his estate.
It's such a contrast, isn't it? Anna and Vronsky are in this world of fancy parties and drama, and Levin's out there looking for something real.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the peace of the countryside, Levin faces his own struggles. He butts heads with the peasants. Their old ways clash with his modern ideas about farming.
It shows how hard it is to change things, even when you have good intentions. It's that tension between old and new that runs through the whole book.
And then Levin starts questioning his own wealth. He sees how the peasants are struggling, how landowners take advantage of them. It bothers him.
He even compares making money to robbery. That's a pretty big deal coming from a landowner. This is the start of Levin's spiritual journey. He's trying to figure out a better way to live.
I love how Tolstoy puts Vronsky and Levin side by side. One's caught in this whirlwind of passion and judgment, and the other's searching for meaning in simpler things.
They're like two different ways of dealing with life's challenges. And then there's Kitty. What about her?
Yeah, what happens to Kitty after all the heartbreak?
Well, she and Levin end up getting back together.
Really?
Yeah, they get married and start a new chapter. It's like they've both grown up through all these experiences.
Kitty becomes this amazing wife and mother, and Levin, he's still got his big questions, but he finds some peace in family life.
They've found this deep happiness, but there are still shadows. Anna and Vronsky's affair is still this big scandal, and it causes tension, especially between Levin and Stepan Arkadyevich.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences, and they ripple outward.
Yeah. Even when you try to build a new life, you can't always escape the past.
So what about Anna and Vronsky? Does their passion last?
Not really. The excitement fades and things start to feel uneasy, especially for Anna.
She's cut off from society, totally dependent on Vronsky, and she's terrified of losing him.
You can feel her anxiety growing. Remember that scene at the opera? She's dressed to the nines, flirting with everyone, trying to get Vronsky's attention.
Oh yeah, that was awkward. It was like she was trying too hard.
Exactly, it backfires. She pushes people away and ends up feeling even more alone. She realizes the life she chose comes at a price.
So while Anna's world is falling apart, Levin's facing his own crisis.
His brother's death really shook him, and he's grappling with these huge questions about life and death and faith.
He dives into philosophy, religion, science, everything.
It's like this intellectual and spiritual quest, a counterpoint to Anna's emotional struggles. He's trying to find truth beyond what society tells him.
Does he find any answers?
It's interesting, he doesn't find them in books or theories. It's when he sees the simple faith of his wife and his brother's former mistress that something clicks for him.
Their belief gives him something he's been longing for. A sense of belonging, of connection to something bigger.
It's a powerful realization. Sometimes the deepest truths aren't complicated. They're found in love and faith.
So Levin finds his peace, while Anna and Vronsky keep falling apart. Their love turns into jealousy and possessiveness.
It becomes toxic. They blame each other for their unhappiness. They're trapped.
It's like their love, which was supposed to set them free, becomes a prison. Anna's anxiety gets worse. She starts using opium, and she pushes Vronsky away.
It's heartbreaking.
And Vronsky, he's tired of the drama, tired of the judgment, and he starts to pull back. He looks for distractions, even other women.
Their story becomes a warning about what happens when passion isn't balanced with understanding and a shared purpose.
As things get worse, Anna feels more and more isolated. Even her sister Dolly can't really help her.
Dolly feels for her, but she can't condone what Anna's done. She's the voice of traditional morals, reminding Anna of the consequences and the pain she's caused.
Anna also desperately wants to see her son, but her husband won't let her. It's like a constant reminder of what she's lost.
It drives her to take risks, even though it could make things worse. Meanwhile, Levin's finding new purpose.
Really? How?
He gets inspired to get involved in local politics, maybe make a real difference.
That sounds like Levin, always wanting to understand and improve things.
But he gets disillusioned pretty quickly.
What happens?
He sees how self-centered the other nobles are. They don't really care about the peasants. They just want to hold on to their power.
So even in politics, idealism crashes into reality.
Yeah. It reinforces Levin's belief in the simple things. Working the land, connecting with people. He finds satisfaction in that.
It's like he's come back to his roots and found what truly matters. But what about Anna? It doesn't sound like things get any better for her.
No, they don't. Her isolation and anxiety drive her to make these impulsive choices that seal her fate.
Oh no.
She tries to win Vronsky back at a society event, but it blows up in her face.
What happens?
She misinterprets things, gets jealous, and ends up completely alone and broken. It's a reminder that society can be unforgiving, and sometimes even love isn't enough.
So we've got Anna falling apart and Levin finding his way. It's a powerful contrast, showing how our choices shape our lives.
And as we head into the final part of the book, both Anna and Levin are at these turning points. Their stories are so different, but they both teach us about what it means to be human and how to find meaning in a chaotic world.
I'm hooked. What happens next? Does Anna find any peace? Does Levin figure out how to live with his new faith?
We'll find out in the last part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
So we're back, diving deeper into Anna Karenina. We left off with Anna in a really bad place, and Levin trying to find his way with this newfound faith.
Yeah, the last part of the book brings both their journeys to an end and is both tragic and hopeful at the same time.
Let's talk about Anna first. Is there any chance she finds a way out of this mess?
Unfortunately, no. Anna's consumed by paranoia and jealousy and this desperate need to win Vronsky back. It leads her to this awful decision.
What does she do?
She throws herself under a train. It's impulsive, born out of despair, and it ends her life.
Oh, that's just so sad. She was such a vibrant character.
Her suicide is the culmination of everything, the pressure from society, her own inner struggles, and a love that couldn't survive in their world. It's tragic, showing what can happen when you live a life that society rejects.
What about Vronsky? How does he handle her death?
He's completely overcome with guilt and grief. He ends up volunteering for the Serbian War, almost like he's trying to find redemption.
Like he wants to atone for his part in her death.
Yeah, and maybe escape the pain. It shows how powerful guilt can be and how we try to find meaning, even when faced with such a huge loss.
So Vronsky is looking for answers on the battlefield, while Levin's still on his own journey back in the countryside. He's still searching, isn't he?
He is. The birth of his son brings him joy and a sense of responsibility, but those big questions about life haven't gone away.
He can't just accept things blindly. He needs to understand them.
Exactly. And this is where Tolstoy gives us this amazing insight. Levin realizes that real happiness isn't about finding all the answers. It's about living a good life, about love, compassion, and connecting to something bigger than yourself.
So it's not about having it all figured out. It's about the everyday things.
Right, living by your values. Levin finds joy in being a husband and father in the simple things. He keeps working the land, connecting with nature, and he embraces faith, not as a bunch of rules, but as a way of life.
It sounds like he finally finds peace, that sense of belonging he was looking for.
He does. Levin's story is one of hope. He shows that even in a world with pain and uncertainty, you can find meaning in everyday moments, in relationships, and in living by what you believe in.
So Anna Karenina is more than just a sad love story. It's about the human experience. It's about searching for meaning, dealing with societal expectations, love, relationships, and the strength of faith and family.
And Tolstoy leaves us with this really thought-provoking question. Can you be truly happy if you go against society's rules? And what are you willing to sacrifice for that happiness?
It's a question everyone has to answer for themselves. But through these characters, Tolstoy gives us this glimpse into what it means to be human. It makes you think about your own values, your desires, and how you find meaning in a world that's always changing.
It's a book that sticks with you. You keep thinking about the choices we make and what really matters.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Anna Karenina. I hope everyone enjoyed exploring this story of love, loss, and finding meaning with us. Until next time. All right. So are you ready to take a deep dive with me into Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House?
Oh, absolutely. I'm ready.
Find anymore.
Billion. And what would it take for you to walk away?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep questioning
Keep exploring.
and keep diving deep. All right. Get ready to explore the unknown.
Discover the extraordinary.
And maybe, just maybe,
You'll find yourself tumbling down of your own someday.
that's it for this deep dive into Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Until next time.
We'll see you down the rabbit hole.
love for you. Make it right, right. My love for you. My love for you.
All right, get ready to dive into Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina with me. We're in for a whirlwind of love, betrayal, and social drama, all
Mhm.
set in 19th century Russia.
What's really fascinating about this book is how Tolstoy weaves these characters' lives together. You see how even tiny choices can snowball and totally change their destinies.
So true. And the story kicks off with a pretty scandalous situation, doesn't it? Stepan Arkadyevich Oblonsky and his brother is a guy who loves to enjoy life,
Mhm.
but he's also kind of trapped in a web of his own making. Debts, a marriage that isn't exactly happy, and a bit of a weakness for affairs.
And this is where Tolstoy is just brilliant. Stepan's liberalism, it's not really a core belief, more like a handy excuse for the way he acts. There's that part where he's reading these newspaper articles that bash the government.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's savoring them, like a nice cigar after dinner.
It's amazing satire. Tolstoy is subtly showing how some people use political ideas just to cover up their own selfish desires.
Right.
But here's the thing. Stepan, for all his flaws, is super successful in his job. He's charming, quick-witted, and can handle tricky situations like a pro.
Makes you think about what success really means, right? In a world where looking good matters more than being good.
Exactly. Stepan's charm might let him get away with things for a while,
Oh, yeah.
but eventually those consequences are going to catch up.
They always do.
Okay, so we've got Stepan with his charm and his flaws setting the stage. And then comes Konstantin Levin. Talk about a contrast. Levin's a landowner, totally connected to the land, but he's also an intellectual, always wrestling with big life questions.
He's such a fascinating character, so awkward, so sincere, especially when it comes to love. He falls head over heels for Kitty Cherbatsky, but totally fumbles when he tries to tell her. It makes him seem even more out of place in those fancy social circles.
But then there's that scene, remember, when they're ice skating?
Oh, yeah.
Levin finds this confidence, even though he's so shy. And Kitty tells him, "With you, I should soon learn. I somehow feel confidence in you."
It's like this glimpse into this deep connection they have. It
Yeah.
goes beyond all that social awkwardness. But it doesn't last, sadly. Kitty's drawn to the flashy Count Vronsky, and she ends up choosing him, which breaks Levin's heart and makes him question his own worth.
Poor Levin. He goes back to the countryside, feeling like he doesn't belong, wondering if he'll ever find real love and happiness.
He calls himself a nobody, lost in a world that doesn't seem to have a place for him.
It's so sad. His journey, running alongside this dramatic love affair with Anna and Vronsky,
Hmm?
becomes this deep exploration of love, societal pressure, and searching for meaning in a world that's always changing.
Exactly.
And speaking of Anna, her entrance is so dramatic. It's like she arrives at the train station and sets off this chain reaction. Everything shifts.
Tolstoy doesn't pick the train station by chance. The train is like the symbol of progress, but it also disrupts everything. It brings excitement, but it also brings upheaval.
Totally. So Levin's at the station to meet Stepan, and he notices something different about Stepan, like a restrained radiance and a joyous smile. It's obviously because of Anna.
And then Levin sees Vronsky too, right? He's struck by how happy and self-assured Vronsky is things Levin wants so badly. This first meeting really sets up these contrasts that Tolstoy keeps weaving through the whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the restaurant later, Vronsky just charms everyone. He even gets that French woman behind the counter laughing. But Levin is completely put off by her. It shows how different they are.
Right. Think about your own values, your desires, and how you find meaning in a world that's always changing.
It's a book that sticks with you. You keep thinking about the choices we make and what really matters.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Anna Karenina. I hope everyone enjoyed exploring the story of love, loss, and finding meaning with us. Until next time. All right, ready to dive into some serious strategy. You've sent us this incredible collection of excerpts from Sun Tzu's The Art of War and some historical commentaries, too. Seems like you're looking to become a master strategist.
Well, it's fascinating because we're about to unpack a work that's been studied for centuries. And not just by military leaders, but by all sorts of people business executives, politicians, you name it.
So let's start with Sun Tzu himself.
Yeah.
Was he a real historical figure or more like a legend?
It's a great question. Sun Tzu is actually shrouded in a bit of mystery. We're not even entirely sure if he was one person or maybe a group of strategists who combined their knowledge.
A historical puzzle. So scholars are still trying to piece together the origins of the art of war. But no matter who wrote it, it's had a huge impact on military thinking for centuries.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that makes it so interesting is that it's not just about battlefield tactics. It's about human psychology, tower dynamics, deception, all sorts of things.
Speaking of deception, there's that story about Sun Tzu training the king of Wu's concubines. Sounds a little unusual, to say the least.
It really does. It's a story that shows Sun Tzu's dedication to discipline and his out-of-the-box thinking. So the king was really impressed by Sun Tzu's reputation and wanted to see his skills in action. But instead of a military demonstration, he asked Sun Tzu to train his concubines. You know, the women who were more used to luxury than military drills.
I can imagine. A group of concubines trying to follow military commands. It must have been chaotic. So, what happened?
Well, Sun Tzu, he took the challenge seriously, divided the women into companies, tried to drill them, but as you might expect, they found the whole thing pretty amusing. Giggling, disobeying orders, the whole bit.
So, how did Sun Tzu, known for his strictness, handle this situation?
He warned them, told them disobedience would be punished, but the laughter continued. So, to really emphasize how serious he was, he ordered the execution of two of the leading concubines.
Wow. That's a drastic way to make a point. What was the king's reaction?
The king was horrified, of course. He begged Sun Tzu to spare their lives, even said his meals would be tasteless without them.
So, did Sun Tzu give in?
Not at all. He stood his ground, said that as the appointed general, his authority couldn't be undermined.
Wow, he actually went through with it.
He did, and it worked. The remaining concubines instantly understood the gravity of the situation and obeyed his every command. Perfect precision in their drills from that moment on.
It's a pretty powerful, if dramatic, illustration of discipline and clear communication, a
Yeah.
story that's resonated with leaders for centuries. It shows you need clear boundaries and consequences, even in unexpected situations.
It does. It also underscores that leadership isn't about being liked, but about being respected and making sure your commands are followed, even if that means making tough choices.
So, the art of war is more than just winning battles. It's about that human element of conflict, psychology of power, leadership dynamics, all of that.
Exactly. And those are the insights that have made Sense's work so enduring and relevant.
Now, let's dig into some core principles from the art of war. One of the most famous is, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's the foundation of Sun Tzu's strategy, really emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and intelligence gathering, understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, as well as your opponent's.
So it's not just brute force, it's about using knowledge as a weapon. Any historical examples that really highlight this?
Oh, absolutely. There's a story of Sun Pin, a descendant of Sun Tzu. He was advising the Qi general during a war with the Wei state. The Wei army, led by General Pang Xuan, had a major advantage in numbers.
Classic underdog situation. So how does Sun Pian use his knowledge to even the odds?
He knew Pang Xuan was arrogant, prone to underestimating his enemies, and he used that to his advantage. As the Qi army retreated, Sun Pin had them reduce the number of campfires they lit each night.
I'm intrigued. What was the point of that?
Pang Xuan, seeing fewer and fewer fires, assumed the Qi army was deserting, got overconfident, led his troops in hot pursuit, thinking it would be an easy victory.
Right into Sun Pian's trap.
Exactly. Sun Pin had anticipated this and had an ambush set up in a valley. As the Wei army marched in, Sun Pin's archers let loose a volley of arrows, routed the overconfident enemy.
It's like a perfect illustration of using psychology and strategy to win, even when you're outnumbered.
Exactly. It shows how information, not just force, can shape the battlefield.
This idea of outsmarting your opponent rather than just overwhelming them seems to come up a lot in Sun Tzu's work.
Oh, for sure. Sun Tzu believed the ultimate goal of war was peace, and the best way to achieve that was to win quickly and decisively. Minimize casualties, minimize destruction.
Powerful concept. So the art of war is not glorifying violence, it's a guide to a more stable world.
Exactly. And that philosophy is reflected in his emphasis on avoiding long conflicts and finding ways to break the enemy's resistance without huge battles.
Being strategic, not just aggressive. Any historical examples of this in action?
Many. One involves Cao Cao. You know that brilliant general and strategist we mentioned earlier? He found himself in a tight spot during one campaign, outnumbered and completely surrounded.
That sounds desperate.
It's surrounded.
Not Cao Cao. He was known for his bold tactics. Waited until nightfall, then launched a surprise attack on the enemy camp. Caught them completely off guard.
I bet they weren't expecting that. What happened?
The attack was so swift, so unexpected, that the enemy, even though they had more soldiers, was routed. Cao Cao turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a stunning victory, just through timing and action.
It's not about avoiding conflict altogether. It's about picking your moment. And it sounds like discipline plays a big part in Sun Tzu's philosophy, too.
Oh, absolutely. One of his famous lines is, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look on them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you, even unto death."
That's a powerful image. It's about the bond between leaders and followers, right? Sounds like he's saying discipline comes from respect and trust, not just fear. Exactly. A well-disciplined army, according to Sun Tzu, is one motivated by loyalty, a sense of purpose, a belief in their leader, not just fear.
And isn't there a story about General Lu Meng that demonstrates this?
Yes, Lu Meng was strict, that's for sure, but he also knew how to earn respect. During one campaign, he strictly forbade looting, harassing civilians, wanted to maintain order, good relations with the locals.
Smart strategy. But I bet it wasn't easy to enforce.
You're right. One of his own officers, someone from his hometown, was caught stealing from a civilian. But despite the personal connection, Lu Meng had the officer executed, upheld his orders.
It must have been a tough call.
It was, but it sent a message, reinforced his authority. The troops knew no one was above the law.
True leadership, then, is about setting clear expectations and sticking to them, no matter what.
Exactly. Creating a culture of accountability and respect, where everyone understands the rules and the consequences for breaking them.
And this discipline, it's not just a military thing. It's about building strong teams in any setting.
Right. Whether it's on a battlefield, in a company, or even in your personal life, self-control, focus, working towards a shared goal, those are valuable.
Sun Tzu also had a lot to say about using the environment to your advantage, especially the terrain.
He did. He actually categorized terrain into 6 types: accessible ground, entangling ground, temporizing ground, narrow passes, precipitous heights, and positions at a great distance. Each one presented unique challenges and opportunities.
So it's like he's saying the battlefield itself can be a weapon.
Exactly. You can use it to your advantage if you know how. There's a great story about General P. A. from the Tang Dynasty, known for his tactical brilliance. During one campaign, he suddenly ordered his troops to move camp to a hilltop.
Out of the blue, why?
His officers were confused, complained about the extra work, but that night, a huge storm hit, flooded their original campsite.
Wait, he predicted a natural disaster.
Seems like it. His officers were amazed by his foresight. But P.A. Xingxin, he never explained his decision, just emphasized the importance of following orders.
Talk about a lesson in trust and obedience. And it really shows how understanding the environment and making decisive choices can turn potential disaster into advantage.
It is. It's a good reminder that sometimes the best strategies are the ones that seem counterintuitive at first.
So Sun Tzu wasn't just a brilliant strategist, he was a keen observer of nature, using the elements to his advantage.
Absolutely. He understood that war, just like life, is unpredictable, and being able to adapt is essential for success.
And there's one more aspect of Sun Tzu's strategy that we haven't touched on: espionage.
Ah, the world of spies. Sun Tzu thought they were essential, said spies are a most important element in war because on them depends an army's ability to move.
So he wasn't just talking about sneaky missions. This was about sophisticated intelligence gathering, deception, psychological warfare.
Exactly. Sun Tzu even categorized spies into 5 types: local spies, inward spies, converted spies, doomed spies, and surviving spies, each with their own role in his strategy.
5 types. That's quite a network. Can you break down the differences?
Sure, so let's start with local spies. They were recruited from, the people living in the area where the conflict was happening. They'd provide insights into the terrain, local customs, how the enemy was moving around.
So like having eyes and ears on the ground.
Yeah.
A real grassroots perspective. What about inward spies?
Inward spies were individuals already within the enemy ranks, officials, people in positions of power who had been persuaded, maybe bribed, to switch sides. They can provide really sensitive information, the enemy's plans, their inner workings, that sort of thing.
Sounds incredibly valuable,
Yeah.
but also incredibly risky, living that double life.
Oh, absolutely. Not a job for the faint of heart. But the intelligence they could provide, it could change the game. Then there's converted spies. This is interesting. These were enemy spies who'd been captured, but then, get this, convinced to work for our side.
Turning your opponent's weapon against them. That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
How did Sun Tzu suggest handling those converted spies?
He emphasized treating them well. Generous rewards, safety guaranteed. He knew they were taking a huge risk by switching sides. Building trust was key.
Makes sense. You wouldn't want them to feel like they were just being used.
Exactly. You want them to feel valued because their knowledge could be incredibly valuable. They could point out weaknesses, identify key targets, even help sow discord within the enemy ranks.
Now, doomed spies? That's a tough one to grasp. Sending someone into a situation knowing they'll be captured seems pretty ruthless.
This was a last resort tactic, a really high-stakes gamble. The doomed spy would be given false information, knowing full well they'd likely be caught and interrogated.
So the enemy thinks they've uncovered something important, acts on that bad information, and walks right into a trap.
Precisely.
That's risky,
Hmm.
not just for the spy, but for the general making that call. It raises some ethical questions about how far you're willing to go with deception.
It does. It shows the moral complexities of war and the tough decisions leaders sometimes have to make. Sun Tzu knew war was brutal, and sometimes sacrifices had to be made for what's seen as the greater good.
And lastly, the surviving spies, the ones who make it back with valuable intel. What made them so successful, according to Sun Tzu?
Intelligence, cunning, physical strength, ability to blend in, all crucial. They also had to withstand interrogation if captured, resist bribes, resist threats, stay completely loyal to the mission.
Ancient espionage sounds intense. A high-stakes game requiring a unique set of skills and total dedication.
Absolutely. They were often the unsung heroes, their actions shaping history, even if their stories remained hidden.
Okay, so we've got the types of spies, their roles, but what about their methods? How did they actually operate in the field?
Well, it really depended on the situation and the kind of information they needed. Some spies used disguise. They'd blend in with the locals, listen in on conversations, pick up rumors, and gossip.
Like undercover agents, essentially.
Exactly. Others might sneak into enemy camps, maybe pretending to be deserters or merchants, to observe troop movements, defenses, get a sense of morale.
That sounds incredibly dangerous. How do they avoid being caught?
It was a constant game of cat and mouse, requiring sharp observation skills, quick thinking, resourcefulness. They might use secret signals, coded messages, secret meeting spots to talk to their handlers.
It's like something out of a spy novel.
It was. And remember, this was centuries before modern tech. No fancy gadgets. They relied on their wits, their instincts, and their ability to blend in.
What about the information they gathered? How did they get that back to their commanders?
They had to be creative. Sometimes they used hidden messages, coded signals, even carrier pigeons. And sometimes they'd just memorize details and recite them when they got back.
That's some serious memory skill.
Oh, yeah. These spies were highly skilled. Observation, memorization, deception. They had to be good at it all.
And the risks. What happened if they were caught?
The stakes were incredibly high. Capture usually meant torture or death. Spying was dangerous, and they knew it. Operating behind enemy lines, no backup, no guarantees.
It's amazing to think about the courage it took to be a spy back then. Real unsung heroes.
Absolutely. Their actions could shape the course of history, even if their stories remain hidden.
So it wasn't just about armies clashing on a battlefield. These spies, they were often the key to victory.
They were. They provided vital information, allowed generals to make smart decisions, outmaneuver their opponents, choose the right moment to strike. They were the foundation of Sun Tzu's strategy.
It's incredible how much impact these individuals had.
It is. Their dedication, their willingness to risk everything, it's remarkable. And even though their stories might be secret, their actions were often decisive.
Okay, so now we have a better picture of these spies, their types, their methods, the incredible risks they took. A fascinating glimpse into a part of warfare we don't often think about.
Exactly. But as we continue to explore the art of war, let's remember Sun Tzu's ultimate goal: peace. How do his ideas translate to today's world? A world still full of conflict and competition.
That's a big question. Sun Tzu was writing about war in ancient China. But his insights into human nature, strategy, conflict, they seem timeless.
They do. Even though he was writing about war, his goal was to prevent it. He believed that through understanding the principles of war, preparing thoroughly, knowing yourself and your enemy, acting decisively, you could actually deter conflict and achieve lasting peace.
So it's like he's saying strength and preparedness can actually prevent war.
Exactly. He believed that weakness invites aggression, while strength and resolve can deter it. He also emphasized diplomacy, negotiation, finding ways to resolve conflicts peacefully.
So it's a more holistic view of peace, one that involves diplomacy, strategic thinking, understanding people.
Precisely. And that message feels very relevant today in a world with so many complex challenges: global pandemics, climate change, political instability.
So how do we apply Sun Tzu's ideas to these modern challenges? These aren't traditional wars with armies and battlefields.
True. But the basic principles of strategy, negotiation, understanding human behavior, they still apply. For example, Sun Tzu's emphasis on knowing yourself. That's crucial in any complex situation.
You have to understand your own values, goals, and limitations before you can effectively engage with others.
Right. And knowing your enemy in this context might mean understanding what's driving these challenges, whether it's a virus, climate change, or political ideologies.
We need to grasp the science, economics, politics, and psychology behind these challenges to find solutions.
Absolutely. And Sun Tzu's focus on planning and adaptability, those seem especially relevant in a world that's constantly changing, full of surprises.
We need to be able to anticipate challenges, develop flexible plans, and adapt as new information comes in.
Exactly. And maybe we don't need spies in the traditional sense anymore, but the idea of gathering intelligence, that's still vital.
Whether it's a pandemic or a tough business negotiation, having accurate, timely information is essential for good decision-making.
Couldn't agree more. We need to constantly be learning, listening, gathering information from all kinds of sources to make good decisions.
So the art of war, even though it's ancient, it's full of wisdom that applies to our lives today.
It is. And by studying it, understanding strategy, negotiation, human behavior, we can all become better leaders, more informed citizens, better at navigating this complex world.
That's a great takeaway. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dives. It's been an amazing journey exploring Sun Tzu's life and legacy, the intricacies of the art of war, and how his ideas apply to challenges both old and new.
It's been a pleasure discussing this with you, and I hope our listeners have a new appreciation for Sun Tzu's wisdom and how relevant it still is. The art of war, it's not just about winning battles. It's about understanding people, mastering strategy, and ultimately trying to create a more peaceful world.
Beautifully put. And on that note, we'll leave our listeners with a final thought from Sun Tzu. The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Welcome back. As we wrap up our deep dive into the art of war, let's circle back to a topic that's both fascinating and crucial to Sun Tzu's strategy: the world of spies.
Right. We've talked about the different kinds of spies, but I'm still curious about how they actually worked and why they were so important to Sun Tzu.
Well, for Sun Tzu, knowledge was everything. He believed that to truly defeat an enemy, you had to know them inside and out: their strengths, weaknesses, plans, even their fears. And spies, they were his way of getting that knowledge. They operated in secret, gathering the information that could change the course of a war.
So they weren't just background players. They were actively shaping events with the intelligence they brought back.
Absolutely. Think of them as the hidden force multipliers. Their actions often went unnoticed by history, but they could make all the difference. They could even determine whether nations lived or died.
It's incredible to think about the risks they took, working behind enemy lines like that. What kind of dangers were they facing?
Oh, the stakes were incredibly high. Being a spy back then was dangerous. They knew if they were caught, torture and death were almost certain. No backup, no support system, just their wits and their loyalty to the mission.
It must have taken so much courage to operate under those conditions. What did Sun Tzu think made a good spy?
Intelligence, cunning, physical strength, all essential. They had to blend in, observe everything, and avoid capture at all costs. And if they were caught, they had to withstand interrogation, resist bribes and threats, and stay completely loyal no matter what.
Sounds like ancient espionage was a pretty intense game, requiring a very specific set of skills and incredible mental toughness.
It was. And we have to remember, this was centuries before modern technology. No gadgets or fancy equipment. They had to rely on their own abilities to observe, to think quickly, to blend in, to survive.
So how did they actually go about gathering information? What were their methods?
Well, it really depended on the situation and what they were trying to find out. Sometimes they used disguise. They would pose as merchants or travelers, even beggars, to move around unnoticed and gather information.
So they were masters of disguise, changing their identities to get what they needed.
Exactly. Others might try to sneak into enemy camps, maybe pretending to be deserters, to learn about troop movements, defenses, morale, things like that.
That sounds incredibly risky. How did they manage to avoid getting caught?
It was a constant game of cat and mouse. They had to be incredibly observant, able to think on their feet, and resourceful. They used secret signals, coded messages, hidden meeting spots to communicate with their handlers. Every step they took was dangerous.
And once they had the information, how did they get it back to their commanders?
Well, they had to be creative. Sometimes they used hidden messages, maybe disguised as something ordinary, or they used coded signals, subtle gestures, things like that. And in some cases, they even used carrier pigeons to send messages.
It sounds like ancient espionage required more than just bravery and cunning. It took a bit of artistry, too.
You could say that. It was a world of secrets, of whispers in the dark. Every little piece of information could change the course of history. And these spies, they were the ones risking their lives to get it.
It's amazing how much influence those individuals had, working behind the scenes to shape events.
It really is. And their stories, even though we don't often hear them, they show us the power of human ingenuity, the importance of information in any kind of conflict.
Well, we've certainly explored a lot in this deep dive. From Sun Tzu's grand strategies to this fascinating world of spies, we've seen how his ideas apply not just to war, but to challenges we face in all parts of life.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? Exploring how relevant Sun Tzu still is today. And I hope our listeners have gained a new understanding of the power of strategy, the importance of being prepared, and the value of truly understanding human nature.
Absolutely. Thanks for guiding us through this. It's been really eye-opening.
My pleasure. Remember what Sun Tzu said, every battle is won before it is fought. So let's all use his wisdom to achieve our own victories in whatever battles we face.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Sun Tzu's art of war. Until next time, keep those strategies sharp. All right, so are you ready to take a deep dive with me into Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House?
Oh, absolutely. Me.
And until next time, keep questioning
Keep exploring.
and keep diving deep. All right, get explore the unknown.
Of your own someday.
That's it for this deep explore the
Of your own someday.
That's explore the unknown.
Of your own someday.
That's it for this deep dive into Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Until next time.
We'll see you down the rabbit hole.
Ain't nobody leave my love.
All right, get ready to dive. Think about your own values. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Anna Karenina. I hope everyone enjoyed exploring the story of love, loss, and finding meaning with us. Until next time. All right, ready to dive into some serious strategy. You've
The importance, so let's all use his wisdom to achieve our own victories in whatever battles we face.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Sun Tzu's Art of War. Until next time, keep those strategies sharp.
Have you ever noticed how one, like, kind of bad thought can spiral?
Oh, yeah.
Like the domino effect, right? Pulls in all this other negativity,
Yeah.
and it's like, ugh. In this deep dive, we're going to really dig into that. We're talking about James Allen's As a Man Thinketh.
Good book.
I know, right? It's like this book that really gets at how powerful our thoughts are, and
Yeah.
not just like how we feel, but like our actual circumstances. So I got to ask you, what's the like core idea of this book?
You know, it's wild how, like, over a century later, this book is still so relevant.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, it's that our minds are like gardens.
Right.
Whatever we plant in them.
Right, literally like seeds.
Yeah, seeds of doubt. Optimism, that's what grows.
So it's not just about thinking happy thoughts all the time.
No.
It's about recognizing those thoughts have real consequences.
Exactly. It's like he's saying, look, if you're constantly dwelling on negative, like fear, all that stuff, you're going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, wow.
And you're going to attract more of that.
It's like, what is that saying? Where attention goes, energy flows.
Exactly.
But he's like taking it a step further, right?
Yes.
He's saying this impacts like the actual events,
Yes.
not just our feelings about them.
He really goes there.
Whoa.
That's where this, like, attracts, like, idea comes in.
Okay.
He doesn't mean, like, every little detail.
Right.
But it's more like your inner world is going to influence the opportunities you see, your actions, even people you attract.
Oh, interesting. He gives that example of someone who wants a promotion at work,
Oh, yeah?
but they're like always gossiping and undermining their coworkers.
Right.
Their desire and their actions are like totally out of whack.
Total misalignment. That's such a good example of what he's talking about.
Oh, really?
That's classic shooting the messenger.
Oh.
Instead of looking at your own thoughts and actions, you blame everything else.
So it's not about blaming ourselves when things go wrong.
No, not at all.
It's about like owning up to how our thoughts are playing into it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you have control over this.
Agency.
Yeah, and he would say, like, owning your thoughts, even the bad ones. That's how you start to change stuff. He's not saying it's, like, easy, but it's possible.
See, that's what I mean. It's so easy to get stuck in that spiral.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like one thought just snowballs into this avalanche of doom.
And he calls that crystallization.
Oh, tell me more.
So it's like, a single crystal can set off this, like, chain reaction.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that single thought you have, if it keeps happening and you reinforce it, it becomes a habit and then, like, part of your reality.
So then positive thoughts can crystallize too.
Absolutely. The more we focus on, like, gratitude, self-belief, visualizing our goals,
Yeah.
all that becomes ingrained, and then it starts shaping our experiences.
So we're like architects, building our reality brick by mental brick.
That is a great way to put it. I love that.
Oh, stop.
But he doesn't even stop there.
No.
No, he goes on to connect this whole thing to, like, our bodies and physical well-being.
Yeah.
He suggests that our bodies mirror our mental state.
Wait, our thoughts impact our physical health.
He was way ahead of his time.
Whoa.
He was talking mind-body connection before it was cool.
That's wild.
What he was saying is that, like, holding on to all that negativity, anger, fear, it's not just in your head.
Right.
It gets into your body.
So it's like our bodies are like, if you're going to stress 24/7, we're going to give you a headache and some like digestive issues to prove a point.
Right. And the way he talks about it is so interesting. He talks about bestial thoughts, which he says poison the body.
Oh, wow.
And then there's beautiful thoughts, and those that, like, bring this inner radiance.
That's intense.
right?
It's not just some like woo-woo thing.
Yeah.
Our minds have real power over our well-being.
They really do.
And you know what's really interesting is that even though he was writing so long ago, modern science is actually finding evidence for all of this.
Isn't that interesting how that happens?
It's wild. Speaking of diving deeper, let's talk about what science actually has to say about the mind-body connection.
Well, like, there's studies that have shown that being stressed out all the time,
Chronic stress.
yeah, that can actually, like, weaken your immune system.
So it's not just in our heads when we're stressed, like our bodies actually can't fight stuff off as well.
Nope, it's real. And that's just, like, one example. There's tons of research now about how connected our minds and bodies are. Stress messes with your heart. Mindfulness can help with pain.
Wow.
Alan was really onto something with this mind-body link, even back then.
Total visionary. But he doesn't just like point out the negative.
No,
not
he actually offers ways to deal with it, yeah.
Totally. And a big one for him is like having a purpose.
Okay,
He says that without it, you're just adrift, like a ship with no sail.
just going wherever the current takes you.
Exactly.
It's not enough to just sort of have an idea of what we want, is it?
Not at all. It's deeper than that.
It's got to be that driving force.
Yeah.
Yes, like a compass, knowing what matters.
Yeah.
And Alan believed that when your thoughts line up with that, man, they become powerful.
Fuel for the fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
To take action, get over obstacles, build the life you want, aligned with your values and everything.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And he talks about visions and ideals too, right?
Absolutely.
Those big, crazy dreams.
He loved those.
He didn't think they were dumb or anything.
Not at all. He called them, like, seeds of future reality.
Wow.
Not that they'll automatically happen, but they're possibilities. And you got to put in the work, thought, the effort to grow them.
So we have more control than we think.
Way more.
That's really cool.
It's like that energy flows where attention goes
Yeah.
thing again,
Right, right.
but bigger. If we're always focused on what we don't want, the limits, the bad stuff,
Yeah.
we're feeding that. But shift it to what we do want, to creating. That's where it gets interesting.
Then the magic happens.
You could say that,
Mm.
but here's the catch. It's not enough to just dream it. You got to do it. Cultivate it, tend to it, and keep going even when it's hard.
Work, work, work.
Always.
Hmm.
That's where his whole calm mind thing comes in, I think.
The garden again, right?
Exactly. If your mind's a mess of worry, nothing good is going to grow there.
Chaotic garden.
The opposite, a serene mind. That's fertile ground. It's not about being happy 24/7, but having that peace, that clarity to handle stuff.
Be resilient.
Exactly.
But that's got to be tough, right?
It's not easy.
Our world's so fast-paced. So how do we actually do that? Find the stillness when there's so much noise.
I think it starts with just, like, noticing.
Noticing.
Yeah, like becoming aware of our thoughts, what's going on in there, but without, like, judging it, just seeing it.
Okay, so less reacting, more like observing.
Yeah, exactly. Just watching those thoughts go by instead of getting swept up in every single one.
Instead of letting them take over.
Right. And once you start to see those patterns, those kind of negative habits,
Boll weeds in the garden.
there you go. That's when you can start to, pull them out, plant something better.
So it's about like consciously choosing what we want to grow in our mind.
Exactly. It's not always easy, it takes time, but even little changes can make a difference.
So for someone listening who's like, all right, I'm ready to try this whole architect of my reality thing,
Yeah.
what's one thing they can do, like, today to get started?
Alan would be all about starting a mindfulness practice.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, even just taking a few minutes to sit, breathe, and just watch your thoughts without getting carried away by them.
Just creating a little quiet space in our minds.
Exactly. And that can actually start to change things in your everyday life, too.
Wow. So we really do have this power of thought.
We do. And this book is like a guidebook for using it.
It's empowering, but also kind of makes you think, right? We have this responsibility to really choose our thoughts carefully.
It is a journey, that's for sure. But like Alan said, it's worth it.
So there you have it, everyone. That was our deep dive into As a Man Thinketh. We talked about how our thoughts shape things, that connection between our minds and bodies, and how important it is to have a purpose, to find that inner peace.
And more importantly, we all have the power to choose the thoughts that are going to shape our lives.
So true. Think about that this week, everyone. And until next time, keep those minds curious and those thoughts powerful.
All right, get ready to explore the epic world of Beowulf.
Oh, yeah, Beowulf. It's a story full of heroes, monsters, and battles, but also a window into the Anglo-Saxon world.
It's a classic for a reason. We're going to take you through the whole story, start to finish, in this deep dive.
Should be fun.
So imagine yourself back in ancient Denmark. We've got King Hrothgar
A powerful king.
throwing these huge feasts in his grand mead hall. Heorot, picture it. A giant hall, music, laughter,
Clinking of mead horns, yeah.
a real symbol of Hrothgar's power and the unity of his people.
But lurking in the shadows, there's Grendel.
This isn't just any monster, is it?
No, Grendel, he despises the joy and happiness coming from Heorot. He's a creature of darkness descended from, well, the Bible even mentions him Cain.
So we know right off the bat he's bad news.
That's right, he embodies the forces of chaos, that darkness threatening human society.
And the sounds of celebration from Heorot, they just drive Grendel
He
crazy.
can't stand it.
So what does he do?
He launches these vicious nighttime raids, attacking Hrothgar's warriors. Heorot, once a symbol of prosperity, becomes a place of terror.
It's like a horror movie.
It is. And this is where we really see the story shift. Hrothgar, his people, they're desperate.
They need a hero.
They need someone to stop this seemingly unstoppable monster.
Enter Beowulf,
Yes,
our hero.
a young warrior from Geatland, known for his incredible strength and courage. He hears about Hrothgar's troubles and, well, let's just say he's not one to back down from a challenge.
So Beowulf decides to sail to Denmark with his loyal warriors.
To confront this monster.
Now, when Beowulf arrives at Heorot, he makes a pretty bold statement, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. Beowulf, he declares he'll face Grendel unarmed.
Unarmed.
No weapons, just his bare hands. You can imagine the shock, the awe.
I'd be terrified.
But you see, Beowulf, he's got this history of amazing feats. The poem talks about this epic swimming match he had with Brecca, battling sea monsters for days.
But this is not just some random boast.
No, Beowulf is the real deal.
He's not just about brute strength either. Beowulf, he uses his head. That's right.
He's got a plan.
He decides to wait for Grendel inside Heorot, using the monster's own tactics against him.
So cunning.
He shows he's not just all brawn.
Yeah, he's intelligent, strategic, thinking ahead.
Absolutely.
All right, so picture this, right? Night falls. Heorot is silent. Everyone's holding their breath. And then Grendel bursts in.
Ready to feast.
But this time, things are going to be a little different.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I gotta ask, how's this epic battle described in the poem?
It's intense, vivid imagery.
Yeah.
The poem makes you feel the clash between these two powerful forces.
Can you almost hear it? The bone-crunching sounds, the roars echoing through the hall.
Absolutely. It's a fight for the ages.
So who wins this epic showdown?
Well, who do you think?
Come on, don't leave us hanging.
Beowulf, of course. The fight is brutal, but he overpowers Grendel. He seizes Grendel's arm and with incredible force rips it right out of its socket.
Wow, just like that.
Grendel, defeated, he flees back to his lair, mortally wounded.
Leaving a trail of blood behind him. Beowulf, to mark his victory, he hangs the monster's arm up in Heorot. A gruesome trophy, for sure.
It's a powerful image.
And a warning to anyone else thinking about causing trouble.
But defeating Grendel, well, it creates a new problem, doesn't it?
It does. Because Grendel, well, he had a mother.
Oh no, this can't be good.
And she's not happy about what happened to her son.
I bet not.
She is a force to be reckoned with. The poem describes her as this monstrous figure living in a murky lake.
A place of darkness and mystery.
Exactly.
So how does Grendel's mother seek revenge? What does she do?
Under the cover of darkness, she infiltrates Heorot. And she takes someone precious.
Who does she take?
One of Hrothgar's closest companions, Ishir.
Ishir, wait, remind me who he was again.
He was a trusted advisor to Hrothgar, a symbol of the king's inner circle.
So this isn't just any attack, it's personal.
It is. It's a devastating blow, a reminder that the fight isn't over.
And I bet the mood in Heorot totally changed, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. One minute they're celebrating, the next they're plunged back into fear.
But of course, Beowulf, he's not going to just stand by and let this happen.
No, he's not. He steps up once again, ready to face this new challenge, ready to venture into the unknown.
Into Grendel's mother's lair.
A perilous journey. It's described as this treacherous path through dark forests and steep cliffs.
Finally reaching a lake filled with all sorts of terrifying creatures. Serpents, sea dragons.
It's a descent into a dark, primal world.
And Beowulf, without hesitation, he takes a deep breath, grabs a sword, and plunges into that murky water.
armed with a sword named Hrunting, lent to him by a warrior named Unferth.
It's like something out of a myth.
It is, and at this point, we're left wondering, will he emerge victorious from this underwater lair, or will he be consumed by the darkness? So Beowulf dives into this murky lake to face Grendel's mother. It's like he's going deeper into the heart of darkness, right? Facing these primal forces lurking beneath the surface.
Right, we left him taking that plunge. What happens once he's down there in that underwater lair?
Oh, it's vividly described. Dark, chaotic water, thick with blood. Beowulf has to fight his way past all these creatures, real and imagined, before he even gets to Grendel's mother.
This is it then, the underwater showdown. How does this battle compare to the fight with Grendel?
Even more intense, more claustrophobic. They're locked in this close combat, surrounded by the depths. But there's a twist. The sword Beowulf borrowed, Hrunting, it fails to pierce Grendel's mother's hide.
Whoa, so his trusty sword is useless. What does he do then?
He's got to improvise. Beowulf tosses Hrunting aside and grabs a giant sword from the wall of the lair. A weapon forged by giants, the poem tells us.
Talk about a lucky break. But it shows his resourcefulness, right?
Mhm.
He adapts and finds a way to fight back.
Exactly. Beowulf embodies that Anglo-Saxon resilience. And with this giant sword, he delivers a fatal blow to Grendel's mother. Her reign of terror ends right there.
Can you imagine the relief in Heorot when they see Beowulf emerge from that lake, victorious once again?
Oh, it's a scene of pure jubilation. Beowulf, dripping with lake water, holding Grendel's severed head, the proof. He's hailed as a true hero.
And this victory, it really cements his reputation, doesn't it? He's more than just strong. He's a savior, a legend in the making.
Precisely. The Scop, the royal poet, would have sung songs of Beowulf's bravery, his deeds immortalized in verse. It's how they recorded history, how heroes were made.
Now, before we go any further, you mentioned the Scop. Can you explain what they did in Anglo-Saxon culture?
Of course. The Scop was like a living archive, historian, and entertainer all in one, memorizing and reciting poems, often with music, preserving their stories, their values. There's even a moment in Beowulf where the Scop recounts the tale of Finn and Hyf, a feud between two tribes.
And why is that story significant?
It highlights these themes of loyalty, revenge, the tragic consequences of war, all themes central to Beowulf's story, you see. It also shows how storytelling reinforced their cultural values, educated the warriors.
So, Beowulf has conquered two terrifying monsters, saved a kingdom, showered with praise and treasure. What's next for our hero?
Eventually, she returns home to Geatland, full of glory and riches. And in time, he becomes king, ruling wisely and justly for 50 years. But a hero's journey, it's never truly over. There's one final challenge waiting for him.
Oh no, not another monster. You'd think he'd earned a peaceful retirement after all that.
Fate has other plans, unfortunately. This time, the threat comes in the form of a fire-breathing dragon guarding an ancient treasure hoard.
A dragon. Okay, things just got real. How does a dragon even enter the picture?
Well, the poem tells us a thief tried to steal a cup from the treasure hoard, accidentally waking the dragon, and once it's awake, oh boy, it's furious. The dragon goes on a rampage, burning villages, terrorizing the people.
Can't imagine anything more terrifying than a fire-breathing dragon on the loose. So how does Beowulf, now much older, react to this new threat?
He feels this deep sense of duty to protect his people, even though he knows he's not the young warrior he once was.
The weight of responsibility, it never really leaves a true hero.
Exactly. Beowulf realizes this could be his last battle. The poem shows him reflecting on his life, his victories, acknowledging his own mortality. It's poignant, realizing even the greatest heroes face their end.
So, even knowing this might be his last stand, Beowulf gathers his warriors and sets out to confront the dragon.
He faces this threat head-on, as he always has, but this time there's a sense of foreboding, a feeling that this battle might not end the way his previous battles did.
Sounds like we're heading towards a tragic climax. What can you tell us about this final confrontation? The aged hero against the fire-breathing dragon.
Oh, it's a bleak scene. Beowulf and his warriors, they arrive at the dragon's lair, this desolate, rocky landscape. Smoke fills the air, the stench of sulfur.
It's like stepping into a nightmare.
Exactly, and Beowulf, even in his old age, I bet he still wants to charge right in.
That sounds like Beowulf,
Yeah.
leading the charge.
He's always been that kind of warrior. But there's a young warrior, Wiglaf. He tries to convince Beowulf to let the others handle this. He pleads with him, think of your people. Remember, you're their king, not just their champion.
Wiglaf sounds wise.
He does. But is Beowulf swayed? Not really. He's determined to face this dragon himself, sees it as his duty, his final act of heroism.
So he goes to face his destiny. Armed with his shield and sword, He approaches the dragon's lair.
And then the battle begins. It's brutal, desperate. The dragon unleashes its fiery breath, melts Beowulf's shield, his claws tear at his armor.
But Beowulf fights back, doesn't he?
Oh, with everything he's got, he manages to pierce the dragon's hide, but then his sword, nagling, it shattered.
Oh no, his shield is gone, his sword is broken. What happens then?
It's a turning point. Beowulf is exposed, vulnerable to the dragon's fury. And what's worse, most of his warriors, seeing their king in such danger, they flee.
They abandon him.
They do, forgetting their oaths, their loyalty, is a stark contrast to the bravery we see from Wiglaf.
So Beowulf's left alone to face the dragon.
No, Wiglaf stands by him, refuses to abandon his king. It really highlights the importance of loyalty in the face of danger.
It's Beowulf and Wiglaf against this fearsome dragon. What happens in these final moments of the battle?
Wiglaf fights bravely, supporting Beowulf, and together they actually manage to deliver a fatal blow to the dragon. But victory comes at a terrible price. Beowulf is mortally wounded, poisoned by the dragon's venom.
Even in victory, it's a tragic end. What happens to Beowulf in his final moments?
He knows his time is short. He sits there, gazing at the treasure hoard he's won, thanking God for this final victory. And then, with his dying breath, he entrusts his kingdom to Wiglaf. He sees the young warrior's courage, his loyalty.
It's a powerful moment, passing the torch.
Exactly. It marks the end of an era. Beowulf's death is the end of a heroic age.
And how does the poem handle his death?
It doesn't shy away from the grief, the sorrow. Wiglaf, heartbroken by the loss of his king and mentor, he rebukes the warriors who deserted Beowulf, reminds them of their oaths, their duty, the shame they brought upon themselves.
It's a powerful message. True heroism isn't just about strength. It's about loyalty, honor, keeping your word, even when it's hard.
Absolutely. So how does the poem end? Wiglaf oversees the construction of Beowulf's burial mound, a grand monument overlooking the sea, filled with the dragon's treasure. A fitting tribute.
A reminder of his courage and sacrifice.
And as the poem closes, a messenger arrives, foreshadowing future conflicts. The world keeps turning. New challenges will arise. New heroes will be needed.
It leaves us with a lot to think about. This epic tale. Why does it still resonate with us after all these centuries?
Because it speaks to something universal within us. Those themes, good versus evil, fate, loyalty, honor, responsibility, death. It reminds us that even in a world filled with darkness, there will always be those who stand up, who fight for what's right.
Who risk their lives to protect others.
Exactly. Beowulf makes you think about what kind of legacy you'll leave behind. What will you be remembered for?
What would your own scop sing about you? That's a powerful question. We've come to the end of our deep dive into Beowulf, this epic tale of heroes and monsters, courage and sacrifice. We hope you've enjoyed this journey.
We hope you'll take these lessons from Beowulf with you.
As you face your own challenges and strive to make your own mark on the world.
My
All right, so buckle up, everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment.
Oh, a classic.
Yeah, we're going to be experiencing the story as it unfolds, all the twists and turns from beginning to end.
Ooh.
So to kick things off, I guess we got to meet our main man, Rodion Raskolnikov,
Okay.
right? He's a young ex-student
Mm-hmm.
living in St. Petersburg,
Yeah.
and, well, let's just say he's not having the best time.
No, he is absolutely not. And what's so interesting about this guy, about Raskolnikov, is that he's brilliant. He's even handsome,
Yeah.
but he's totally drowning in poverty and alienation.
It's like the city itself is kind of like closing in on him.
Right. You get that feeling reading it. It's almost like St. Petersburg is this physical manifestation of his like inner turmoil, this oppressive, stifling atmosphere, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's super important to understanding his mindset.
Okay.
He's not just some poor student down on his luck.
Right.
This is a man on the verge of a breakdown, fueled by this, like, potent resentment for the whole world around him.
Yeah, and then he meets his pawnbroker, Alyona Ivanovna.
Oh, yeah, she's a piece of work.
Definitely. He pawns his watch,
Mm-hmm.
but you can, like, feel this underlying tension.
Yeah. Like he's sizing her up or something.
Exactly.
It's not just about pawning a watch, is it?
No, it feels like something else is brewing.
Right. And then right after that, he runs into Marmeladov, this drunkard, you know, who pours his heart out about his family, about their poverty.
Oh, man, that's right. His daughter, Sonia,
Right.
who has to, like, resort to prostitution
Yeah.
to support her family.
Yeah.
Jeez. That really gets to Raskolnikov.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it just reinforces all his like disgust with the injustice of it all.
Yeah.
But it also kind of plants the seed. This really dangerous idea starts taking root.
Okay, so you're saying this encounter kind of pushes him over the edge.
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's a turning point.
And then there's Lizaveta.
Right, Alyona Ivanovna's sister.
Yeah. Who's like Completely different.
Right, yeah. She's described as this kind, innocent soul, the total opposite of the pawnbroker.
And yet, this meeting with her ends up being like a catalyst.
Yeah, it really solidifies his warped justification for what he's about to do.
Wait, are you talking about the murder?
Mm-hmm.
He kills Alyona Ivanovna with an axe.
Yep. And Dostoevsky does not shy away from the details. It's brutal, the tension is unbearable, and the aftermath. Pure psychological chaos.
Wow. So does he get away with it?
Well, he escapes the scene, but he's far from free.
Right.
He goes into this total spiral. Paranoia, guilt, near madness.
I can only imagine. To be trapped in your own mind like that.
He's haunted by what he's done. Literally haunted.
And then on top of all that, his mother and sister show up in St. Petersburg, depending on him completely.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Talk about pressure.
Oh, man. That's like adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, totally. It's like everything is piling on, and then we have all these other characters coming into the picture. Razumihin, his loyal friend, Luzhin, Dunya's weird and manipulative suitor, and of course, Porfiry Petrovich, the detective who's on to Raskolnikov from the start.
Wait, Porfiry knows.
Oh, he suspects. Definitely suspects. But he's playing this psychological game with Raskolnikov, using these subtle tactics, mind games, veiled accusations.
Trying to break him down.
Exactly. It's a battle of wits. He sees something in Raskolnikov, you know? More than just a criminal. It's almost like he's fascinated by him.
And meanwhile, Raskolnikov is falling apart at the seams.
Totally. Outbursts, erratic behavior.
Yeah.
He even confesses to another detective, Zamatov, while he's delirious with fever.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild. He's drawn to the people investigating him, yet trying so hard to hide his guilt. It really makes you question his sanity.
And there's that whole scene at Marmeladov's funeral.
Oh, yeah, that's a mess. Katerina Ivanovna completely loses it. Luzhin tries to frame Sonia for theft, and then Raskolnikov jumps in to defend her.
So even after committing murder, he's still got this sense of, like, chivalry.
It's complicated, right? It shows this capacity for compassion even after the horrific act he's committed. Makes his character even more intriguing.
He's not just a cold-blooded killer.
Not at all. Tormented by his conscience, drawn to Sonia's purity, and driven by this, like, twisted sense of justice. It's fascinating.
And this is where he confesses to Sonia, right?
Exactly. I mean, who else could he tell?
Yeah, no woman.
She's the only one he feels can understand his torment.
Wow. What's her reaction?
It's a mix of horror and pity, but also this unwavering devotion. It's heartbreaking and confusing at the same time.
She sounds like a saint.
Right. I can't imagine having that kind of strength.
So this confession leads them into, like, some deep philosophical discussion.
Oh, yeah, they go there. Guilt, punishment, the possibility of redemption, all the heavy stuff Dostoevsky himself was wrestling with.
Sounds like we're about to head into some even deeper waters.
Oh, yeah, we're just getting started.
Well.
Yeah, so we left off with Raskolnikov at a real crossroads.
Yeah.
Confessing to Sonia, and now he's got to face the music. But as we go deeper into Crime and Punishment, his journey, oh, it is far from over.
So what happens? Does he, like, go straight to prison?
Eventually, yeah. But first, there's this new guy, Svidrigailov.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Another character. This is already so complex. Who is this guy? Is he like a villain?
It's hard to say, really. He's a slippery character.
Guy.
Does some good things, seems like. Helps Marmeladov's family after he dies.
Okay.
Even offers Sonia money, but his motives are always kind of like suspect.
Like he's trying to, like, buy his way into their good graces, maybe to get to Dunya.
Exactly. And there's this really tense scene where he basically corners Dunya, pushes her to the point where she has to defend herself.
What, she attacks him?
Shoots at him.
Whoa, things just escalated quickly.
Yeah.
Did she kill him?
No. He survives, but it shakes him up, makes him kind of face his own demons.
Yeah.
You know?
So what's he do after that? Does he give up on Dunya?
No, his actions get even weirder. Actually, buys himself a young fiancée with money, but then releases her from the engagement, just wanders off.
He just walks away. What was the point of all that?
It's like he's trying to find redemption,
Okay.
but he's going about it all wrong. Ends up giving Sonia money for Raskolnikov in Siberia, and then in a cheap hotel room, he takes his own life.
Wow, that's dark. Tragic end. I don't know, he was such a confusing character, capable of good things, but then also evil things. I don't know what to make of him.
He really embodies that moral ambiguity that runs through the whole novel, forces us to question our own judgments about people, you know, acknowledge that people are complex.
Right.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, I guess Raskolnikov ends up in prison in Siberia, right?
Yeah, you'd think the physical hardship would be the worst part,
Yeah,
but Dostoevsky shows us that it's really his internal battle that's truly torturing him.
really. So not the hard labor, the isolation.
Oh, they're hard, sure.
Yeah.
But what really breaks Raskolnikov is his pride, Humiliation of his fall from grace. Remember, he saw himself as special, above the rules.
All right.
Now he's got to face the consequences, see himself as others see him. A criminal, a failure.
That's got to be crushing to have your whole world view shattered.
Totally. And it leads him to question everything, even why he didn't end his own life like Svidrigailov did.
So is he just totally consumed by despair then? Is there any hope for him at all?
There is, and it comes from a surprising place. Sonia.
Oh, right. She followed him to Siberia, didn't she?
Yeah, talk about devotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can she possibly help him now, though?
Their relationship is strained at first.
Oh.
Raskolnikov pushes her away, wallows in self-pity.
Okay.
But Sonia never gives up on him.
Wow.
She visits him, shares news from home, reads to him from the Gospels.
It's like she represents this pure, unconditional love, such a stark contrast to the bleakness surrounding them.
Absolutely. And slowly through her, he starts to change, begins to see his actions in a new light, to grasp the real weight of his crime.
So the extraordinary man who thought he was above it all finally starts to feel remorse.
Yeah, he realizes his crime wasn't just breaking the law, it was breaking something much deeper, human connection, empathy itself.
That's a powerful realization. But is it enough for him to find redemption? Can he ever truly forgive himself?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's realizing how heavy his actions really were. But is that enough? Can someone like Raskolnikov, who went and took a life, can he really find redemption?
That's the big question hanging over the rest of the book. Redemption, at least in Dostoevsky's world, it's not about escaping punishment
Okay.
or forgetting what happened.
So not about getting off scot-free.
No, it's about facing your darkness, taking responsibility, and ultimately changing yourself through suffering and real remorse.
Okay, so how does that play out for him in Siberia? Does he actually reach that transformation?
It's a long and painful process,
Yeah.
but we do see him changing. Sonia's love and her faith, they play a huge part.
Right.
She becomes this source of strength,
Mhm.
reminding him of his humanity, even in that despair.
So even in a place like Siberia, surrounded by, criminals, there's still room for hope and connection.
Exactly, Sonia. She embodies that hope. She reads to him from the Gospels, tells him about his family, and just offers her presence, reminds him he's not alone.
It's like she's showing him a new path, a way out of the darkness.
Yeah. And slowly he starts to respond to that. He starts to feel genuine remorse, tenderness for Sonia. There's even this dream where he sees the world being ravaged by disease, and he realizes his whole idea of being extraordinary was a total delusion.
So he's finally letting go of that dangerous belief that got him into this mess in the first place.
Seems like it. He starts to understand that real strength isn't about power,
Right.
but humility and compassion.
But he's still murdered someone. How can he ever make up for that?
Dostoevsky doesn't give us easy answers. Raskolnikov is still haunted by nightmares, still wrestling with the weight of what he did.
Yeah.
But there's this sense that his suffering, his willingness to face his guilt, it's a step toward eventual redemption.
So it's not about erasing what he did, but about becoming a better person through this whole ordeal.
Exactly. And while Dostoevsky leaves the ending open,
Okay.
there's this feeling of hope, a suggestion that through everything, through Sonia's love, Raskolnikov has taken the first steps towards a new life.
Wow, what a story. We followed Raskolnikov from poverty to murder, paranoia, prison, and finally some hope for redemption. What a ride.
Yeah, Crime and Punishment, it's a book that stays with you, makes you think about morality, justice, the human soul, all that deep stuff.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I think it's that even in the darkest parts of humanity, there's always a chance for change, for growth, even for redemption. It's a powerful message, reminds us of hope and the power of human connection.
Well said. This has been a fascinating look at one of literature's most compelling characters.
It really has, and I hope it encourages everyone listening to pick up Crime and Punishment, experience it for themselves. It's a book that will challenge you, provoke you, and stay with you long after you finish it.
Hey! Yeah, drop. Hey, huh. Hey!
All right, let's jump right in. Today we're taking a deep dive into Dante's Inferno,
Oh, the Inferno.
the first part of his epic poem, The Divine Comedy. We're going to be following Dante as he journeys through hell, guided by, well, the poet Virgil. And we're working with excerpts from various cantos. And
Yeah.
honestly, just reading through them, uh, it's intense stuff. It's both thrilling and a little bit terrifying, to be honest.
Huh.
What's in store for us here?
Well, get ready because it's a journey that really sticks with you. Imagine like you're lost in this dark woods, sun setting, and you know you're about to enter the underworld. That's exactly where Dante finds himself right at the very beginning of the Inferno.
I don't think that's on my bucket list for vacations, but... So Dante's scared, right? I mean, wouldn't you be?
Oh, he's absolutely terrified. He's lost his way, he's filled with doubt, and he even wonders if he's strong enough for this whole harrowing journey. But then, almost like an answer to his prayers, this Roman poet Virgil appears.
Wait, Virgil? Like the guy who wrote the Aeneid. What's he doing in Dante's poem?
Well, that's the brilliance of Dante. He weaves in figures from classical literature, history, into his own Christian vision of the afterlife. It's amazing. So Virgil, he explains that he was sent by Beatrice, a woman Dante deeply admires, to guide him through this, well, terrifying realm.
Hold on, Beatrice. Who is she? Like, is guardian angel or something?
Oh, she's even more than that. Beatrice, she represents this divine love and grace in Dante's work, really a symbol of Dante's own spiritual aspirations. And her influence, it plays a crucial role in his, well, eventual salvation. But even in these early lines, you can see how Dante's setting up this idea of divine intervention, that grace can be found even in the darkest places.
Okay, I'm starting to see how layered this poem is. So Dante, with Virgil as his guide, takes the plunge into hell. And man, the descriptions he uses, they're so vivid, it's almost like you're right there with him.
Absolutely. Dante was a master of imagery, and he uses it to full effect in the Inferno. He talks about rivers of fire, a lake of ice, a forest where the souls of suicides are trapped in trees. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
And each circle of hell, it's designed for a specific sin,
Okay.
like a custom-made punishment to fit the crime.
That's what's called contrapasso, the punishment reflecting the sin.
Hmm.
It's Dante's way of exploring this whole concept of divine justice. And
Ugh.
believe me, it gets intense.
So as they're descending deeper and deeper into this nightmarish landscape, they start running into some really, really memorable characters. I mean, one that really stuck with me was Francesca da Rimini, eternally trapped in a whirlwind with her lover Paolo as punishment for their, well, adulterous affair. It's so tragic.
Francesca's tale, it's heartbreaking. But it's a powerful example of how Dante uses individual stories to explore more universal themes. In this case, it's the power of desire, the consequences of giving in to temptation.
Makes you think about
Yeah.
how easily we can get swept away by our passions, and the choices we make, they can have lasting consequences.
Absolutely.
Then there's Pierre Delvine, this once powerful advisor who was falsely accused of treachery and driven to suicide. His story, it's hard to shake.
It really is. Pierre Delvigne, he represents the themes of betrayal and the corruption of power. He was a victim of these courtly intrigues, falsely accused, imprisoned. His story, it's a warning about the dangers of ambition and the fragility of human trust, especially in the political sphere.
Right. A reminder that even those in positions of power can be brought down by, deceit and injustice.
Absolutely.
And then there's Ugolino, imprisoned with his sons and left to starve. That's one of the most, I don't know, just disturbing scenes in the whole poem.
Oh, absolutely. Ugolino's story is truly horrific. Dante, he doesn't shy away from depicting the depths of human suffering. And this encounter, well, it's a prime example. Ugolino's descent into madness and his insatiable hunger for revenge, it's just disturbing.
Chilling reminder of the destructive power of vengeance
Mm.
and the depths of human cruelty. But it's not all just about individual sins and punishments, right?
Yeah.
Dante, he also uses his journey to comment on the political landscape of his time.
Absolutely. When Dante and Virgil encounter Sordello, another Italian poet, Dante launches into this passionate lament about the state of Italy. He criticizes the corruption, the violence, the lack of unity that was plaguing the country at the time.
So even in hell, Dante can't escape the political turmoil of his world. It's like he's using the Inferno as this platform to voice his frustrations and hopes for a better future for Italy.
Exactly. Dante was deeply engaged in the politics of his day, and his personal experiences of exile and political persecution, they're woven throughout the entire Inferno. It's what makes the poem so compelling. It's not just a theological treatise on sin and punishment, it's a reflection on the human condition in all its complexity.
So far, we've seen fear, divine intervention, these vivid descriptions of, I don't know, unimaginable punishments, and even some pretty sharp political commentary. Where does Dante go from here? I'm almost afraid to ask.
Well, after navigating the depths of hell, Dante and Virgil, they finally emerge from the darkness, and they begin their ascent towards Mount Purgatory, a realm of hope and purification.
Thank goodness. After all that darkness and suffering, I think we could all use a bit of hope right now.
Oh, trust me, the shift in tone it's palpable. We go from this oppressive blackness of hell to the refreshing imagery of sunrise, angelic guardians, and the sounds of souls singing hymns of repentance. It's a much needed breath of fresh air.
Can't wait to explore this new realm with Dante
Yeah.
and see what, challenges and revelations await him on Mount Purgatory. But for now, let's just take a moment to let everything we've experienced in hell sink in. It's been quite a journey so far.
It has. So we're ascending Mount Purgatory with Dante now, and it's a completely different world than that oppressive darkness of hell.
Yeah, it feels like coming up for air after being, I don't know, submerged in icy water. What's it like there in Purgatory?
Well, picture this, like breathtaking sunrises, angelic guardians at the entrance, and you hear the sounds of, souls singing hymns of repentance. It's a place of hope. Souls are actively seeking purification, striving for redemption.
Definitely a welcome change of scenery after the intensity of hell.
Hmm.
So are there, does Dante encounter some interesting figures along the way?
Oh, absolutely. One of the first souls he meets is Manfred, the king of Sicily. He shares his story of dying in battle, but repenting at the last moment, which, well, allowed him entry into purgatory.
So even a last-minute change of heart can make a difference. That's, I don't know, kind of reassuring, actually.
It really highlights the power of repentance, even for those who may have led, a sinful life. But there's a catch to Manfred's story. He pleads with Dante to clear his name back in the world of the living, because, you see, he was excommunicated by the Pope.
So even in Purgatory, worldly concerns still linger. It's like it shows how connected our earthly lives are with our spiritual journeys.
Exactly. And it allows Dante to explore these complexities of political power and the potential for forgiveness, even for those who may have wielded authority unjustly.
The next encounter that I found really fascinating was Dante's meeting with Bonconte de Montefeltro, who also died in battle. But his death was, well, particularly dramatic, wasn't it?
Oh, incredibly so. Bonconte, he describes being fatally wounded, collapsing near a river as he lay dying. An angel and a devil appear, battling for his soul.
Wow, a cosmic tug of war for a man's eternal fate.
Ah.
So who wins?
The angel, ultimately. But it was a very close call. You see, Bonconte had led a sinful life, but in his final moments, he offered this single heartfelt prayer to the Virgin Mary.
So even the smallest act of contrition can have a profound impact.
Exactly. It emphasizes the importance of turning towards God, no matter how, late in life it might be. It's a powerful message of hope, the potential for divine grace to intervene even in the darkest circumstances.
These stories, they're so powerful. And then there's the encounter with Pia de Tolomei. Her story is so brief, but man, so heartbreaking.
It is. It's a story told in whispers and silences. Pia, she reveals very little about her life, only that she was from Siena and met an untimely end in Maremma, but there's this chilling implication that she was, murdered by her husband.
Leaves you wanting to know more. To uncover the truth behind her tragic fate, it speaks volumes about, I don't know, the vulnerability of women in that era and the often unspoken violence they endured.
Absolutely. It adds another layer to the themes of betrayal and injustice that we see throughout the Inferno. And it reminds us that purgatory is not just about, individual purification, but it's also about this reckoning with the sins of the world and the suffering that they inflict.
So as Dante continues his climb, what other transformations does he witness in purgatory?
Well, one of the most striking aspects of purgatory is this shift from punishment to purgation. The souls here, they're not being tormented, but they're actively engaging in acts of repentance and self-reflection.
So it's more about, I don't know, like healing and growth
Yeah,
rather than eternal suffering.
precisely. Dante, he describes the souls performing these various acts of penance, each tailored to the specific sin that they need to overcome. For example, those who are proud in life are forced to walk bent over under these heavy weights, while those who are envious, they have their eyes sewn shut.
It's interesting how Dante connects these physical acts of penance with spiritual cleansing.
Hmm.
Like they're embodying their
Yeah.
sins in order to transcend them.
Right. It speaks to the idea that spiritual transformation, it's not just an abstract concept. It's something that requires this active effort, embodiment.
Hmm.
Dante believed that true repentance, it involved confronting one's sins head on and actively working to change one's behavior.
That's a powerful message, one that resonates even today. So as Dante's witnessing these souls purging their sins, what what lessons is he taking to heart?
Well, one of the key lessons that emerges in purgatory is this importance of choosing love over hate and forgiveness over vengeance. Dante encounters a group of souls who were victims of violence, yet instead of seeking revenge, they pray for the forgiveness of their killers.
That's a, I don't know, radical concept even in our modern times. Letting go of that anger and hatred, that takes immense strength and compassion.
It does. It's a testament to their spiritual growth. Their understanding that holding on to negativity, it'll only hinder their progress toward heaven.
I imagine Dante himself is wrestling with these ideas as he's witnessing the transformations happening all around him.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, Dante, he's on his own journey of purification. He's confronting his own sins, his own shortcomings, and these encounters, they serve as both guides and warnings as he navigates his own path towards redemption.
So this whole journey is like a giant mirror reflecting his own inner struggles.
Exactly. It's a process of self-discovery, spiritual awakening, where Dante, he's constantly challenged to confront his own flaws and strive for this higher level of consciousness.
It's amazing how he manages to weave together the personal, the political, and the spiritual so seamlessly. He's not just telling a story. He's exploring the very essence of what it means to be human.
He is, and he does it with such poetic brilliance and psychological depth. I mean, it's no wonder that the Inferno continues to captivate readers, centuries after it was written.
Speaking of, captivating encounters, I'm curious, who else does Dante meet along the way? Any other figures that stand out in Purgatory?
As Dante ascends higher, he encounters these two renowned poets, Winnicelli and Arnott Daniel, figures he deeply admired during his lifetime.
Wow, A chance to chat with his literary heroes. I bet Dante was, I don't know, thrilled.
Oh, absolutely. But these encounters, they're more than just, fanboy moments. Dante, he uses them to reflect on the nature of art.
Hmm.
Its ability to transcend time and space and its power to inspire and elevate the human spirit.
So even in a realm focused on spiritual purification, art still has value, still has significance.
Precisely. And for Dante, who was a poet himself, these encounters are a way for him to reaffirm his own commitment to the power of language and the enduring legacy that he hopes to leave behind.
Like he's seeking validation from his predecessors, but also finding inspiration to continue his own, creative journey.
Exactly. These encounters, they're a beautiful testament to the power of human creativity and the enduring connections that we forge through art.
So we've got hope, redemption, forgiveness, the transformative power of art, and this growing awareness of the interconnectedness of our lives. It seems like Dante is learning so much as he climbs this mountain of purification. What else awaits him as he gets closer to the summit?
Well, as he ascends higher, a figure emerges from Dante's past, Cacciaguida, an ancestor who offers insights into Dante's family history and delivers a prophecy about his future exile from Florence.
Well, prophecies always add a bit of intrigue. What does Cacciaguida foretell?
Well, he reveals that Dante will be forced to flee Florence due to political turmoil,
Huh?
the machinations of his enemies. He'll experience hardship, betrayal, and the bitterness of exile.
That doesn't sound very pleasant, but this prophecy, it must hold a deeper meaning, right?
Oh, absolutely. It reinforces this idea that Dante's journey through the afterlife, it's deeply entwined with his personal experiences and the political realities of his time.
So it's not just a random plot twist,
Yeah.
but like a way for Dante to connect his individual story with the larger historical narrative.
Exactly. Dante's journey, it's about his own spiritual purification, but it's also about bearing witness to the sins and struggles of his city, his country, and ultimately all of humanity.
It's incredible how he weaves all these layers of meaning together.
Yeah.
As he gets closer to the summit of Mount Purgatory, what final transformations await him?
Well, as Dante approaches the peak, his journey, it takes on this more dreamlike quality. He experiences a series of visions that foreshadow his exile and the hardships that he's destined to face.
Sounds like things are getting pretty intense.
They are, but these visions, while unsettling, they also serve to strengthen Dante's resolve. He sees them as confirmation that his path is righteous, even if it's, fraught with difficulty.
Like he's steeling himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that his journey is far from over.
Exactly. He's embracing his destiny, even the painful parts, and that's a testament to his growing spiritual strength.
Okay, I think I need a moment to process all of this. Purgatory is proving to be just as thought-provoking as hell, but in a completely different way.
It is. It's a realm of profound transformation and self-discovery. And as Dante reaches the summit of Mount Purgatory, he'll experience this transition that's both breathtaking and awe-inspiring.
I can't wait to see what awaits him at the top, and I
Huh.
have a feeling it'll be this culmination of everything he's learned and experienced on his journey so far.
So Dante, he's journeyed through hell, climbed Mount Purgatory, he's seen unimaginable suffering, profound acts of repentance. And now he reaches the summit and steps into this realm of, well, breathtaking beauty, spiritual ecstasy.
I can only imagine after everything he's been through what that transition must feel like, what awaits him there at the top of Mount Purgatory.
He enters the earthly paradise. Think like Garden of Eden splendor, where earthly beauty meets divine grace. It's here he encounters a figure named Matilda.
Matilda, is she another soul working her way towards heaven?
She's more than that. Matilda represents this active life of blessedness, like an earthly counterpart to Beatrice. Remember, Beatrice, she embodies divine love and grace.
Right, right.
Well, think of Matilda as a guide, preparing Dante for his ultimate reunion with Beatrice.
Okay, so what's Dante's experience like in this earthly paradise?
Well, Matilda leads him through this idyllic garden. He witnesses these symbolic processions, these pageants. They represent the triumph of the church, the virtues of faith, hope, and charity. It's a visual feast, really, of allegory and symbolism.
It sounds like the tone of the poem is shifting again pretty dramatically. We've moved away from the darkness and torment of hell and even the trials of purgatory into this realm of light and beauty.
Exactly. And as Dante draws closer to heaven, his language, it becomes even richer, more layered. filled with this vibrant imagery that evokes a sense of, well, spiritual ecstasy, the earthly paradise. It's a transitional space, a taste of the divine glory that awaits him.
So does he finally reunite with his beloved Beatrice in this paradise?
He does, and it's a moment of, well, profound emotional and spiritual significance. Imagine, you're overcome with awe and love as Beatrice appears, radiant, divine, surrounded by angels, bathed in heavenly light. Dante uses all his poetic skill to convey the sheer power and the beauty of this encounter.
Wow, after all this time, their reunion must be incredible.
It is. It's the culmination of everything Dante has been striving for throughout his entire journey. Beatrice, who represents his path to salvation, now becomes his guide through heaven, you know, just like Virgil guided him through hell and purgatory.
So Beatrice takes over for Virgil, leading Dante toward this deeper understanding of God and the mysteries of the universe.
Exactly. She embodies divine wisdom and love, guiding him through the celestial realms as they ascend through these various spheres of heaven. Dante encounters, all these saints and angels, each representing different aspects of divine love and wisdom.
It's like he's getting this like VIP tour of the cosmos, learning about the workings of the universe from the ultimate insiders.
Exactly. Dante grapples with these complex theological concepts. He explores the nature of time and eternity. And ultimately, he reaches this state of ecstatic union with God, described as this vision of blinding light and an overwhelming love.
That sounds like an experience it's almost impossible to put into words.
It is. Dante's attempt to describe his vision of God is one of the most, well, powerful and moving passages in all of literature. He's trying to articulate the ineffable, to capture the essence of transcendence and divine union.
So after all the trials, the tribulations, the darkness, the despair, Dante finally achieves this state of pure bliss, spiritual enlightenment.
Yes. And it's a reminder that even in the midst of our own, struggles and suffering, there's always this possibility of redemption and transcendence. Dante's journey it's a testament to the enduring power of hope, of faith, and the human capacity for love and spiritual growth.
What an incredible deep dive this has been. I mean, we followed Dante from the fiery depths of hell to the sublime heights of heaven. What's the biggest takeaway here? What can we learn from Dante's epic adventure?
I think Dante's Inferno, it reminds us that life is a journey. And even when we're faced with, adversity and temptation, we have the power to choose our path, to seek forgiveness, to strive for a higher purpose. It's a call to self-reflection, to confront our inner demons and embrace the transformative power of love, of grace, and the pursuit of truth.
It's a message that resonates, even centuries after Dante wrote it.
Yeah.
As we wrap up our deep dive into the Inferno, I encourage you to consider, what lessons you can apply to your own life. What demons do you need to confront? What paths to redemption might you seek?
The journey, as Dante so powerfully illustrates, it's always ongoing.
And on that note, we conclude our exploration of Dante's Inferno. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of, well, literature's most enduring masterpieces. All right, let's dive into the world of Don Quixote. We've got excerpts from the novel, and trust me, this is no ordinary story.
You know, what's fascinating is that the author, Miguel de Cervantes, led an adventurous life, too.
Oh, really? Tell me about that.
Well, he was a soldier, got wounded in battle, even captured by pirates.
Wow, that's incredible. It's no wonder his writing is full of action and intrigue.
Definitely.
So he takes that experience and writes this story about an aging bookworm, Alonso Quijano, who becomes obsessed with chivalric romances.
Right, obsessed to the point he decides to become a knight errant himself.
He takes on the name Don Quixote, and that's where the adventure begins.
But it's important to remember Cervantes isn't just writing a funny adventure story.
Oh, what else is going on?
He's writing during a period of great change. You see, the old ideals of chivalry were fading, giving way to a new era, and Don Quixote reflects that tension. The tension between the old and the new, the real and the imagined.
So to really get Don Quixote, we need to understand what chivalry meant in his world.
Exactly. Chivalry wasn't just about fighting dragons and rescuing damsels.
Though I'm sure Don Quixote believes in all that.
He does, he certainly does. But chivalry was also a code of honor, courage, loyalty, and courtly love. Knights were these noble warriors, upholding justice, defending the weak.
Okay, I see. So how does Don Quixote's version of chivalry differ from the actual code?
Oh, it's more than a little off. His understanding is completely warped by those romantic tales he's read. He sees the world through, well, you could say a lens of fantasy.
So he's mistaking inns for castles, and I'm guessing windmills for giants.
Precisely. He mistakes ordinary people for enchanted beings.
Okay, so that explains the whole tilting at windmills thing. It's more than just a funny image. It's a symbol of Don Quixote's skewed perception.
Exactly right. It's where his perception clashes with reality. And you know what?
What?
That scene has resonated with readers for centuries. Because think about it. Don't we all sometimes fight our own windmills?
Well, I like that. You mean our own impossible dreams?
Exactly. Those imaginary enemies, those impossible dreams that we charge at head first.
That's a great point. But, okay, back to Don Quixote. How does he actually become a knight? I'm pretty sure there weren't official knighting ceremonies happening in 17th century Spain.
Well, that's where the humor really shines. Don Quixote is so convinced he's living in a chivalric romance that he forces an innkeeper to knight him.
No way, seriously.
Oh, yeah. He stumbles into an inn, mistakes it for a castle, and demands the innkeeper, who is obviously bewildered by this, perform the ceremony.
Wait, so he makes the innkeeper do it?
He does. It's a scene full of comic brilliance. You have Don Quixote, deadly serious in his delusion, kneeling before this completely ordinary, flustered innkeeper.
I can only imagine the poor innkeeper.
I know, right? It really sets the tone for the whole novel. This perfect blend of humor, adventure, and a deep exploration of how we perceive the world.
So once he's knighted, he sets off on his adventures.
Oh, yes. And he's got company. He convinces a local peasant, Sancho Panza, to be his squire.
Sancho Panza, of course. He promises him riches and a governorship in return.
Yes.
So Sancho Panza, he's the voice of reason in all this. The one who tries to keep Don Quixote grounded.
Well, Sancho's definitely more grounded in reality than his master. He's practical, concerned with food and comfort, and he has a pretty healthy dose of skepticism.
Makes sense. But he goes along with it.
He does. He's also drawn to that grand vision, to that promise of a governorship.
It's hard to resist. So what's their relationship like? I mean, they seem like complete opposites.
They are, and that's what makes their dynamic so compelling. Don Quixote, he's the dreamer, the idealist, and Sancho is the realist, the pragmatist. But they form a strong bond. It's this odd couple friendship that endures all their wild adventures.
I'm starting to see why this story has lasted. It's not just about a crazy night. It's about friendship, loyalty, the clash between reality and fantasy, and maybe how we all see the world a little differently.
Absolutely, and then this is just the beginning. Don Quixote's journey is filled with these encounters that'll make you laugh, make you think, and maybe even question your own perceptions.
Okay, I am hooked. Let's hear about some of these adventures. All right, so Don Quixote is a self-made knight-errant,
He is.
and he's got his squire Sancho Panza at his side. What happens next?
Well, one of the first and most iconic encounters is with windmills. Don Quixote sees them in the distance and is convinced they're giants.
Ah, the tilting at windmills scene. It's such a famous metaphor.
It is.
I'm curious, how does it actually play out in the novel?
Oh, it's a brilliant scene. Hilarious and thought-provoking. He charges at the windmills with his lance, believing, of course, that he's engaging in a heroic
Like,
battle.
horn.
But his lance gets caught in the blades and he's thrown from his horse.
Ouch. That sounds painful. But he doesn't give up his delusion, right, even after that.
Not at all. He rationalizes the failure, claiming a magician must have transformed the giants into windmills to rob him of his victory.
Wow. So even in defeat, he holds on to that worldview.
Absolutely. It's a classic example of how Don Quixote's mind works. He's constantly reinterpreting reality to fit his chivalric worldview.
Like he's living in a completely different dimension
Right.
where logic just doesn't apply. What about Sancho Panza? What's he thinking during all of this?
Well, Sancho, ever the pragmatist, tries to tell him. He tries to tell Don Quixote that those are just windmills, but his master won't listen.
Of course not.
And this difference in perception, it becomes a recurring theme throughout their journey. Sancho sees the world for what it is. Don Quixote sees what he wants to see.
That's such a great point. It's like this constant push and pull between those two perspectives.
Mm.
But their adventures don't stop at windmills, do they?
Oh, no, they don't. They have all sorts of encounters, each one more outlandish than the last.
Like what?
Well, they meet a group of friars whom Don Quixote mistakes for kidnappers.
Kidnappers.
They come across a flock of sheep that he believes is an army, and he even gets into a fight with muleteers over a barber's basin.
Wait, a barber's basin. What's so important about a barber's basin?
Well, to Don Quixote, it's not just a basin. He becomes convinced that it's the legendary helmet of Mambrino,
The helmet of Mambrino.
a magical object from chivalric lore supposed to make the wearer invincible.
So he's walking around with a basin on his head thinking it's this magical helmet.
He is.
That's amazing. It's like his imagination takes these ordinary objects and transforms them into something extraordinary.
You got it. And it's not just objects. He encounters real people and reimagines them, too, to fit his fantasies. He meets this peasant woman named Aldonza Lorenzo.
Okay.
But in his mind, she becomes Dulcinea del Toboso, his idealized lady love, worthy of his knightly devotion.
So he creates this whole chivalric romance in his head,
Right?
casting himself as the hero, Dulcinea as his damsel, and everyone else just plays along in his story.
Exactly. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Dulcinea, she's based on a real person.
Oh, interesting. Does she ever appear in this story?
She does. But not in the way Don Quixote expects. At one point, Sancho Panza, always wanting to please his master, goes looking for Dulcinea.
He does.
But of course he can't find her.
Right, because the real Dulcinea,
Doesn't match the fantasy.
what does he do? Does Don Quixote give up on this idealized version?
No. Sancho, resourceful as ever, concocts a story. He says that Dulcinea has been enchanted and transformed into a peasant woman
Of course.
to explain why she doesn't look the way Don Quixote imagines.
It's fascinating how Don Quixote's delusions, they're constantly being reinforced by those around him, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. It seems like his adventures are becoming more and more elaborate.
They are. You see, his reputation as this eccentric knight-errant starts to spread,
Uh-oh.
and it attracts the attention of some rather mischievous characters.
You mean like the Duke and Duchess?
Yeah?
The ones who play those elaborate pranks on Don Quixote and Sancho Panza?
That's right. The Duke and Duchess hear tales of Don Quixote's exploits, and they decide to have a little fun at his expense. They invite him and Sancho to their castle, pretending to believe that Don Quixote is a genuine knight-errant.
That's when things take a turn toward the surreal, right?
Oh, absolutely. They orchestrate all these elaborate hoaxes, fake adventures, staged battles. They even create this flying wooden horse called clavileño, all for their own amusement.
It makes you wonder, are they being cruel? Or is there something else going on here? Are they mocking Don Quixote, or are they indulging his fantasies?
That's a great question. It's a question that's puzzled readers for centuries, really. There's a fine line between mockery and admiration in the way they treat him. They exploit his delusions, but they also seem to recognize something, maybe a certain nobility, in his unwavering belief in his own heroic narrative.
It's a complex dynamic. On the one hand, you've got Don Quixote, this figure of ridicule. But on the other, there's something admirable about his refusal to let go of his ideals, even when they're so clearly at odds with reality.
Right, and you have to remember the context. Cervantes was writing at a time when the old world was giving way to the new. The world was changing rapidly. And perhaps, in Don Quixote's idealism, He saw a reflection of a way of life that was disappearing.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting way to look at it. It's like he's not just a comical figure, but a symbol of a lost era when chivalry and honor were everything.
Exactly. And as Don Quixote's adventures continue, you see this clash between the old and the new play out in increasingly complex ways. He encounters people who represent different aspects of society, from the cynical to the idealistic, and his interactions with them really force you to question your own values and beliefs.
So Don Quixote is so much more than just a funny story.
It is.
It's like a satire of chivalric romance as a commentary on a changing world and this deep exploration of human nature.
You've got it. And as we get to the final stages of Don Quixote's journey, we'll see all those themes come together in a truly unforgettable conclusion.
Last time, we left Don Quixote and Sancho Panza with that Duke and Duchess.
Yeah.
And all their pranks. What happens next?
Well, the Duke and Duchess keep it up with their games, but something interesting happens with Sancho Panza. You know, he's always been the practical one. But they decide to test him.
Oh, how do they do that?
They appoint him governor of this small island. It's called Barataria.
Hold on. They actually make him a governor. Like, as a joke.
Yeah, pretty much. But here's the thing. Sancho, he actually takes his duties seriously.
Wow.
He governs with this wisdom and compassion. You wouldn't expect it. He shows this natural sense of justice. It surprises everyone, maybe even Sancho himself.
So the bumbling squire, always looking for a place to rest and a good meal, he turns into a wise and just ruler.
He does. And it really shows Cervantes' genius that he gives this seemingly simple character so much depth. Sancho is more than just comic relief. He represents the common man, you know, with all his flaws and his goodness.
That's really interesting. Makes you wonder, is there a little Don Quixote in Sancho, too? Has some of that idealism rubbed off on him? But what about Don Quixote? How does he react to Sancho's governorship?
He's proud of him, of course, and he offers Sancho advice, tells him how to rule justly, but Don Quixote, his mind is still fixed on his own quest.
Right.
He keeps having these adventures, some funny, some sad, but he starts feeling the weight of his illusions.
So he's starting to realize maybe the world isn't like those chivalric romances.
Yeah, you see these moments of disillusionment, glimpses of the real world breaking through that fantasy he's built, and these moments, they become more frequent as the story goes on.
I see. What about Dulcinea? Does he ever see her again? The real Dulcinea, not the one in his head.
He does, and it's a sad encounter, really. Sancho tries to protect his master from reality. He keeps up that charade, you know, that Dulcinea has been enchanted, but Don Quixote, he sees through it this time. He is devastated.
Oh, wow.
This woman he's worshipped from afar, just an ordinary woman, not the great beauty he imagined.
That must have been a huge blow for him, like the foundation of his fantasies crumbling.
Yeah, it's a turning point in the story. After that, Don Quixote's adventures, they become less about glory and more about looking inward and realizing he won't live forever.
So how does it all end? Does Don Quixote ever fully come back to reality?
In the end, he goes home, defeated and disillusioned. He lets go of those chivalric delusions, and he dies peacefully in his own bed. It's bittersweet, but it also feels right somehow.
It does sound a bit sad. But is it really? He lived his life the way he wanted. He chased his dreams, even if they weren't real.
And that's the amazing thing about Don Quixote. It leaves you with more questions than answers. Was he a fool chasing windmills? Or hero? Is it better to live in a fantasy? Or to face reality? Cervantes doesn't tell you what to think. He wants you to figure that out for yourself.
What an incredible journey. From those hilarious first steps as a self-made knight to the end with Don Quixote accepting reality. This story has taken us through so many emotions.
And it still resonates with people centuries later. His quest might be over, but his spirit, his idealism, his beloved imagination, it's still inspiring.
Thank you for joining us as we took this deep dive into Don Quixote, a story that never gets old. It makes us laugh, it makes us think, and it shows us just how complex the human heart can be. All right, so are you ready for this? We are diving deep, and I mean deep, into Bram Stoker's Dracula.
And you know, when you say deep dive, you really mean it. We're not skimming the surface here.
Nope, we are going way beyond the basic plot points, those things you can find anywhere. This is about unearthing those hidden gems that make Dracula a classic.
Yeah, like, did you know Dracula can control the weather?
I mean, come on, that's not even like the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about ancient ways to repel vampires, secret symbols hidden in plain sight.
Things that make you realize there's a whole other level to this story.
Exactly. And we're going to unpack all of it.
I love it. So, where do we start? Most people think Dracula, they think fangs, capes, maybe a creepy castle.
Right. Total cliche.
But Dracula is so much more than that. Underneath all that, there's this intelligence, this strategy, this cunning that's actually really chilling when you think about it.
So you're saying he's not just some mindless monster, he's got a brain.
Oh, he's got a brain, all right. And he knows how to use it. Remember that scene early on? Jonathan's trapped in the castle, scared out of his wits. And what's Dracula doing?
Let me guess. Throwing a dinner party.
Nope. Dracula is in his library, brushing up on English history and geography.
He's doing his homework.
Exactly. He's not just some bloodthirsty beast. He's a scholar, a strategist, and he's planning his move to London very carefully.
Wow, okay, so he's playing the long game. And speaking of games, it's not like Stoker just made this guy up from scratch, right?
Yeah.
There's that whole Transylvania connection, this historical figure.
Oh, absolutely. We can't forget Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracula. That's where Stoker got the name.
Yeah.
And a lot of the inspiration for the character.
So we're talking real-life ruthlessness, the kind of stuff that gives you chills.
That's exactly what Stoker was going for. He took this historical figure, this guy shrouded in darkness and fear, and he wove that into his fictional vampire. So you're not just afraid of a monster, you're afraid of something rooted in reality.
Okay, that is seriously creepy. But even with the history, even with the brains, we still got to talk about the powers. Shape-shifting, controlling the weather. I mean, that guy's practically a superhero.
Well, more like a supervillain. But you're right, those powers, they're terrifying. And Stoker uses them so effectively. Think about that scene where Dracula crawls down the castle wall in front of Jonathan.
Oh, I know, like a spider.
Right. It's like, hey, Jonathan, look what I can do. Just a taste. And it's deliberate.
A total power move.
Exactly. And then there's the hypnotic gaze, the influence over animals. Remember the wolves?
And those storms that seem to follow him everywhere.
It's all designed to create this aura of power, of something completely beyond our control, like a force of nature.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how anyone stands a chance against him. But that's where Jonathan Harker comes in, right? The guy who's basically trapped in Dracula's House of Horrors.
Yeah, poor Jonathan. He gets a bad rap sometimes, seen as just a victim. But he's so much more than that.
I mean, the guy's resourceful, he's observant.
Oh, absolutely. He's actively trying to understand his captor, which takes guts. And remember, he's keeping that journal, writing everything down, even when he's terrified. That's huge.
I know, those journal entries. The way he describes the castle, the shadows. It's like you're right there with him, feeling the creepiness.
That's Stoker's brilliance. He's pulling you into the story, making you experience the horror alongside Jonathan.
And speaking of experiencing the horror, can we talk about the women in this story? I mean, you've got Mina, who's practically a superhero with her intelligence and bravery.
And then there's poor Lucy.
Talk about a study in contrasts.
Oh, absolutely. You've hit on something really important about Dracula, the power of women, especially in Victorian England.
Yeah, it's like they're living in two completely different worlds, even though they're facing the same threat.
Exactly. And Mina, she's such a fascinating character. She's not content to just sit back and let the men handle things.
Oh, no, she's a woman of action.
Right. She embraces logic. She dives into research. She's the one who starts piecing together the puzzle of Dracula.
While everyone else is still trying to figure out if vampires are even real.
Exactly. She doesn't shy away from the truth, even when it's terrifying. And she's not afraid to take risks. Remember when she lets Van Helsing hypnotize her?
After she's been,
Exactly. After she's been marked by Dracula, that takes incredible strength.
it's like she's willing to face her own darkness to help defeat the bigger evil.
Exactly. She understands that knowledge is power, and she's not afraid to use it. Now compare that to Lucy.
Poor Lucy.
She's charming, she's sweet, but she represents that more passive role that women were often expected to play in that era.
And it doesn't end well for her.
No, it doesn't. Her choices, or lack thereof, have devastating consequences. It's a really tragic part of the story.
It's like Stoker's showing us the dangers of being passive, of just accepting things the way they are.
Right. And then you have Van Helsing, this larger-than-life character who comes in with his knowledge, his expertise.
And his garlic. Don't forget the garlic.
Oh, right, of course. Van Helsing, he's this fascinating mix of science and superstition.
Like, he's got his crucifixes and holy water, but he's also all about blood transfusions.
Exactly. He bridges those two worlds, the rational and the supernatural. He understands the ancient lore, the old ways of fighting vampires.
But he's not afraid to embrace modern methods, too.
Right. It makes you wonder, what did people back then really believe about vampires? How much of that fear was rooted in actual belief?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And I guess it makes you think how much of that fear is still with us today.
Definitely something to think about. But with Van Helsing, it's like Stoker is saying, hey, don't dismiss the old ways entirely.
Because sometimes those old beliefs hold a grain of truth.
Exactly. And sometimes you need a little garlic with your blood transfusion.
So true. But even with Van Helsing's expertise, they're still dealing with a creature of immense power. I mean, we've talked about Dracula's cunning, his intelligence, his powers, but just how strong are we talking? Does he have any weaknesses?
Good question. He's strong, but he's not invincible. He's got his limitations. Daylight, for example, is a big one.
Right, the whole sleep in a coffin thing.
Exactly. Remember how Jonathan described Dracula during the day? Lethargic, confined to his coffin. Sunlight weakens him.
So no sunny beaches for Dracula.
Definitely not. And it's not just sunlight. Remember those boxes of earth he had shipped over?
Oh yeah, like he's got a gardening hobby or something?
No, exactly. That earth, it's from Transylvania, his homeland. He needs it to regenerate his power.
Like a vampire energy drink.
In a way.
Yeah.
It allows him to maintain his strength even on foreign soil. But here's a question for you. If Dracula is so powerful, why all the sneaking around? Why not just waltz into London and take over?
Yeah, good point. It seems like he's going through a lot of trouble when he could just bulldoze his way in.
Because for all his power, he's not immune to everything. There are things that can hurt him, things that can repel him.
You're talking about the whole garlic and crucifixes thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sacred objects have power over him. And of course, the traditional methods still apply. Staking, beheading.
Right, the classics.
So he can't be reckless. He has to be strategic, exploit weaknesses, manipulate those around him.
It's a game of chess, not checkers.
Precisely. And that's what makes the story so compelling. It's this constant cat and mouse game between Dracula and our heroes.
They're trying to anticipate his moves, stay one step ahead.
And they're getting some unexpected help along the way.
You're talking about Renfield, the guy who eats flies.
The one and only. He's more than just a random lunatic, you know?
I know. He's got that whole connection to Dracula.
Exactly. He's like a barometer for Dracula's presence and power.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. Renfield craves life, right?
Yeah.
He devours flies, spiders, even birds. It's like this primal urge that reflects Dracula's own thirst.
And his escape attempts,
Mm-hmm.
always trying to get to that abandoned house.
It's like he's drawn to Dracula, like a moth to a flame. And as Dracula's influence grows, Renfield's sanity unravels.
So he's both a warning sign and a source of information.
Precisely. He provides these unintentional glimpses into Dracula's world, his plans, his weaknesses.
Although he's not the most reliable narrator.
True, but those glimpses are crucial for the heroes.
They're trying to piece together this puzzle, and Renfield is like a missing piece.
Exactly. And it's through those glimpses that we see Dracula's true cunning. Remember the Demeter, the ship that arrives in England with a dead captain at the helm?
Oh man, that was creepy.
Right. Talk about an escape plan. It's brilliant and terrifying at the same time.
Stoker really knew how to create a sense of dread.
He was a master of it. And that's the thing about Dracula. He's not just a monster, he's a strategist.
Mhm.
He uses his powers to manipulate people, to bend the very forces of nature to his will.
He controls the fog, the storms. He becomes one with the darkness.
Exactly. He's this force of nature, but a dark and twisted one. But, you know, our heroes, they don't give up.
They're determined to stop him.
They follow him all the way back to Transylvania, ready to end his reign of terror once and for all.
It's the ultimate showdown.
It is. And at the heart of it all is Mina. She's not just a bystander in this fight. She's directly connected to the source of the horror.
Because of what Dracula did to her.
Exactly. And this is where her true strength shines through. She's battling this darkness within her, this connection to Dracula that threatens to consume her.
It's like she's fighting two battles at once.
Exactly. And it's that connection, that bond, that actually helps the heroes.
Wait, well, how does that help?
Through hypnosis, they're able to tap into Mina's connection with Dracula, to sense his presence, to track his movements.
So she's like their secret weapon.
In a way, but it's a double-edged sword.
Because she's putting herself at even greater risk.
Yes. And that's the tragic irony of Dracula. Mina, the strongest, the most virtuous, becomes the one most entangled with evil. It's like the price of fighting a monster is becoming a little monstrous yourself.
Wow, that's deep. So it makes you wonder, what does it really mean to be a monster? Is it the one with the fangs and the bloodlust?
Or is it the one who's willing to do whatever it takes, even cross moral lines, to defeat evil? It really makes you think, doesn't it? That's the kind of question that sticks with you long after you finish the book.
It's like Stoker's holding up a mirror to our own darkness, making us ask ourselves, how far would we go?
Exactly. But in the end, good triumphs, right? Dracula is defeated.
Well, sort of. I mean, yeah, he's staked, he's gone, but it's not a clean victory.
That's true.
Quincy Morris.
Don't even get me started on Quincy Morris.
He doesn't make it, does he? Sacrifices himself to take Dracula down.
Which is so sad. He was such a good guy. Always willing to put himself on the line for others.
It's a reminder that even in victory there can be loss, and that sometimes the line between good and evil, it's not always so clear.
No, it's
Yeah.
definitely not. But it also shows the power of, selflessness, sacrifice, that willingness to give everything to fight for what's right. And that's what resonates with people even now. That idea that even in the darkest of times, there's still hope. That we have the strength to face our fears and fight for what we believe in.
And that even if we come face to face with our own monsters, we can overcome them. We can come out stronger on the other side.
Exactly. Dracula, for all its horror and darkness, it's ultimately a story about the human spirit, about our capacity for both good and evil, about love and loss.
It's a story that stays with you. It makes you think about things in a different way.
It does. Dracula challenges us to confront those deeper truths about ourselves and the world around us.
So as we close the book on this deep dive, what will you take with you? What echoes of Stoker's masterpiece will stay with you?
Because ultimately, Dracula isn't just about vampires and gothic castles and all that. It's about us.
It's about the darkness and the light that exists within all of us.
And about finding the strength to choose the light, even when it's hard, even when we're afraid.
And that's a journey worth taking, every single time. All right, let's dive in today, and we're going to be looking at Faust.
Oh, Faust, fantastic.
Yeah. Specifically, excerpts from the Project Gutenberg ebook of Faust
Mm,
by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
excellent.
Yeah. And you're really interested in kind of the narrative flow, so we're going to be focusing on that, taking you through the story
Awesome. I
chronologically,
love it. Sounds good.
hitting those key moments.
All right, so right off the bat, Goethe kind of throws us into the deep end, right?
Yeah.
We're talking prologue in heaven, like what?
Prologue in heaven.
Yeah, you don't usually get that.
And we got God and the devil, Mephistopheles, right?
Mephistopheles, yeah, having a little wager.
They're debating, like, what is humanity?
Yeah. Are we inherently good or, just waiting to be tempted?
So that kind of sets the stage for the whole story, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that question just hangs over everything. And then we meet Faust, right? Brilliant scholar, top of his game, but miserable.
Totally.
Hmm.
He's tried everything, knowledge, magic. He even tries summoning spirits, but nothing works.
Yeah, you remember that scene with the earth spirit?
Oh, yeah.
Tries to get ultimate knowledge, but it just overwhelms him.
Like it's too much for him.
Yeah, and it leaves him feeling even more empty.
Yeah, it's almost like even with all the knowledge in the world, something's still missing.
I think we've all felt that at some point, and that's when Mephistopheles sees his opening.
Right.
And he comes in, not with, fire and brimstone, but disguised as a poodle.
A poodle. Can you imagine coming home from a day like Faust's and finding the devil just chilling in your living room as a puppy?
Right. Talk about bad timing.
So obviously Faust figures it out, but there's that cool detail, right? Mephistopheles is stuck at first, trapped by a pentagram.
Yeah, even the devil has to play by the rules, at least for a little bit.
And then we get to the pact,
The deal.
the big one. Mephistopheles, smooth talker that he is, says, "Hey, I'll be your servant.
Anything you want, you got it.
All the earthly pleasures."
But there's a catch.
Big catch. If Faust ever has that moment of pure satisfaction, if he ever wants to freeze time and say, "Stay, you are so beautiful."
That's it. Game over. Mephistopheles wins his soul.
And Faust even says it out loud, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if ever I to the moment shall say, "Beautiful moment, do not pass away. Then you may forge your chains to bind me, then I will gladly perish. Then you may toll the death knell for me, then you are from your service free."
I mean, talk about setting yourself up for failure, right?
It's like he already thinks true happiness is impossible.
Yeah, it's a real paradox. He's so obsessed with experience, with pleasure, that he might be ruining his chance of ever finding real joy. And of course, the next chapter